Chapter 1196. According to her, the meat soup brewed by immortal venerable ants could greatly increase the purity of magic power of immortal venerables and immortal kings. However, it did not improve the magic power of immortal emperors. The current purity of Ningfan's magic power was only at the fourth tribulation immortal king realm. Therefore, the effect of the soup was quite obvious. An ordinary immortal king could purify their magic power to around 10th tribulation immortal king realm by consuming a pot of the soup. Ningfan had the refinement art. When he circulated the art and refined the soup, the medicinal effect of the soup was perfectly absorbed by him without any waste. The effect of consuming a pot of soup was more than 3 times that of an ordinary person. It could purify 30 to 40 tribulations of magic power. In the end, Ningfan finished 60 to 70 pots of soup. No matter how many times he drank it, he could not get used to the taste of the soup. Every time he drank it, he would feel like vomiting. Ningfan's dissatisfaction was the same as the monster's satisfaction. When she saw Ningfan's frustrated expression again and again, a smile bloomed on her face. Her pair of big and cute eyes were as bright as the red sun in the morning on a snowy night. The more she cooked the soup, the happier she felt. Just as she was about to cook a few more pots of soup to disgust Ningfan, she suddenly had a bad feeling. The ants that were used to cook the soup were all used up. Oh my God! What did she do? Those were nearly 70 immortal venerable ants. Just now, she was only focused on bullying Ningfan. She actually got carried away and forgot her sense of propriety. Within a day, she fed him nearly 70 bowls of the soup. The ants were too nutritious. How could he eat them like that? If I overdo it, it will be a big problem. Ningfan's small body was obviously weak. The result of not being nourished was that his primordial spirit would swell, his immortal veins would be in disorder, and his magic power would be out of balance. In serious cases, his foundation would be damaged and his bones and blood would be damaged. In the worst cases, his blood and chi would flow in reverse and his body would explode. This time, things had gone too far. Ningfan, this weak chicken, was probably going to die because of her nourishment. Even though she wanted to push Ningfan away, she did not plan to kill him because she would definitely be severely punished by her master if she did that. Her ending would be very, very miserable. Little fool, no brother Ning, this little sister has something to tell you. You've already eaten all of the nearly 70 ant species that you hunted. The sludge monster started to feel scared, and his voice was trembling a little. Had the ant seeds been used up? After killing the previous batch of corpse slaves, there seemed to be no more corpse slaves in the surroundings. After such a long time, no more corpse slaves were attracted over. Perhaps we should change our location. The aura of resentment was the heaviest in the northwest, and one could see the ghostly clouds of resentment in that direction with the naked eye. There must be quite a number of corpse slaves over there. Let's go there and have a look, Ningfan said with a smile. Eating ants could greatly increase the purity of his magic power, so he was naturally in a good mood. After drinking nearly 70 bowls of ant soup, Ningfan had purified the magic power of over 2,400 tribulations. In addition to the results of his previous cultivation, a quarter of the magic power in his body had already been purified to the 5th tribulation immortal king realm. If he has enough ant seeds, Ningfan was confident that he could raise the purity of all his magic power within a short period of time, and officially attain the 5th tribulation realm. It's better not to hunt any more ants today. The sludge monster said hesitantly. Why? Could it be that something will happen if we hunt too many corpse slaves in one go? Your worry isn't without reason. This is the 12th level of the earth abyss, the deepest part of the light ant's nest. If we hunt too many ants, it's highly likely that we'll be discovered by them. However, in this world, the effort and the reward are always proportional. As long as we can quickly increase the purity of our magic power, it's alright to take some risks. It's not this reason. The sludge monster covered her face with her small hands and choked speechlessly. How was she going to explain to Ningfan about the sins that she had committed? Then what's the reason? Ningfan suddenly felt that his dantian was getting hotter and hotter. When he first drank the ant seed soup, his body did indeed feel hot. However, he did not pay much attention to it. After all, it was just soup. Of course, his body would feel warm after drinking it. However, when he calmed down, he felt that something was wrong. A small tent in a certain part of his body began to bulge. What made him lose his composure was that his nose felt hot, and he almost had a nosebleed. Hot. Very hot. This wave of heat gave him a strong desire. He needed to release it immediately. Otherwise, his blood essence would flow in reverse and rush to his head, damaging his foundation. You didn't seem to have told me that eating too many ants will have such a side effect. Ningfan stared at the sludge monster with scorching eyes. This kind of scorching feeling was just a natural reaction of his body at the moment. He did not really have any intentions towards the sludge monster. However, the sludge monster did not think so. She could see it. Ningfan had eaten too much, and he wanted to release himself from his woman. All of a sudden, hundreds of miserable scenes flashed through her mind. She was retaliated against by Ningfan. She was pressed on the ground and had sex with Ningfan. She was hung up by Ningfan. She was boiled into soup by Ningfan. She was My magic power is tens of times purer than yours. If you dare to touch me, I will burn you to death with my magic power. You can't touch me. Really? The sludge monster retreated in fear. She was really afraid that Ningfan would go crazy and not let go of a lump of mud like her. Ningfan's eyes narrowed slightly. I see. No wonder this sludge monster tried to entice him to touch her head as soon as she saw me. It turns out that she wanted to use the moment their bodies touched to burn me with the purity of her magic power, and plot against me. No wonder he felt an inexplicable sense of danger at that time. This sludge monster is indeed not as simple as it looks. You are thinking too much. Even if I want someone to release my fire, I won't look for a lump of mud. Ningfan secretly circulated the yin-yang transformation. He realized that even the yin-yang transformation could not suppress the evil fire in his body. Once again, he was surprised by the medicinal power of the ants. It seems like I need to return to the profound yin world and look for his human cauldrons to save my life. Damn it! How dare you look down on mud? What's wrong with mud? How did mud offend you? Without us mud, how can you have white spiritual herbs and immortal herbs to eat? If there is no mud in the world, the cultivation civilization will fall back by 500 eras. Ah no, it will fall back by 1,000 eras. The sludge monsters chattered non-stop. Ningfan, on the other hand, was too lazy to listen to the sludge monster's long-winded speech. I'm sorry. I need to go and release my fire to save my life. Otherwise, if my blood and chi really go against the flow, things will really get out of hand. Wait for me here. I will be back soon. As soon as he finished speaking, he went into the profound yin world. There were plenty of human cauldrons there that could save his life. Wait. Where are you going? You can't just leave me here alone. How long will it take for me to return? How long do I have to wait for you here? Damn it. Damn it. You are having fun in the world of the world treasure, but I am waiting for you to come back in the wind and fire. At least bring me into your world treasure to cool down for a while. The sludge monster replenished its water to avoid being roasted by the flaming earth into dried mud. At the same time, it kept chattering with deep resentment. The after-effects of nearly 70 ants were too great. Ningfan used 3 whole days to get rid of all of them. 3 days later, Ningfan returned to the outside world from the profound yin world. At first, he thought that the sludge monster would wait for him outside obediently. Unfortunately, he was wrong. When he looked around, there was no sign of the sludge monster at all. Did she go back alone? This is going to be troublesome. I have already memorized the formation incantation to capture corpse demons in this place. Even if I am the only one left, I can still hunt the ants. However, the medicinal power of the ants is too strong. I can't eat them raw. I have to process them. The method to brew the meat soup might seem simple, but it is actually extremely complicated. Without that lump of mud, I can't brew the meat soup anymore. Ningfan felt a little helpless. Ningfan felt slightly helpless. It seemed like it was necessary for him to teleport back and bring the sludge monster here. Suddenly Ningfan's eyes narrowed. Suddenly, a strand of green hair fluttered in the wind from afar, and flew towards Ning Fan's hand. This is the lost ancient demon technique, the green hair life-seeking technique. He had only seen this ancient technique in ancient records by chance in the past. However, he did not expect that such a miraculous technique actually existed in this world. According to the legends, the ancient demons who knew this technique could ignore the world plane and distance and ask for help from the person they want to see no matter where they are trapped in or how isolated they are. Then the question was, who was using this ancient technique to ask him for help? Even though the green hair life-seeking technique was miraculous, it could not transmit words. No one could judge what the owner of the green hair had experienced, and why she needed to ask for help just by looking at it. Ning Fan sniffed the scent of the green hair. There was an extremely faint fragrance on it. It was not the scent of makeup or rouge. Instead, it was an extremely fresh and earthy scent, like the smell of a drizzle in an empty mountain. It's that lump of mud. She is in danger, Ning Fan frowned. He initially thought that the sludge monster had already returned to the 6th level 3 days ago. However, it turned out that it was not the case. She seemed to be in trouble on the 12th level. That sludge monster was not weak. However, it was still a distance away from the quasi-saint realm. Unfortunately, this place was the deepest part of the light ant clan's nest. It was not strange for a quasi-saint light ant to appear here. It's possible that little mud monster is in danger here. Of course, it's also possible that she is just scheming or playing tricks on me like before. After the green hair found Ning Fan, it flew towards the direction where it came from with the wind. The direction it was pointing to was the direction where the sludge monster was currently at. Ning Fan was a little hesitant about whether he should go and save the sludge monster or not. He was not afraid of the dangers of this place. He was just worried that this was another trick of the sludge monster. Just as he was hesitating, the fluttering green hair was suddenly burned into ashes by a demonic light that came from the end of heaven and earth. Now there was no need for him to hesitate anymore. Since the green hair had been destroyed by someone, it was impossible for Ning Fan to find the sludge monster by following the green hair. In the 12th level of the Earth Abyss, the suppression on spirit sense was even greater. In this place he could not use any sensing methods at all. Trying to find the sludge monster in the vast 12th level was no different from a fantasy. Who did this? Show yourself. Ning Fan's eyes turned slightly cold. His aura force swept across the area. Suddenly, the space in a certain place in the sky cracked. A silver-armored burly man was caught off guard and fell out of the crack. His face was filled with gloom. This silver-armored burly man was actually a quasi-saint realm expert, with 11,000 tribulations of magic power. However, he was not a true quasi-saint realm expert. Instead, he was the result of the fusion of several powerful light ants. He was a pseudo-quasi-saint realm expert. Ning Fan recognized this person's appearance. In the past, he had worked together with omniscient old man to destroy the nest of an ant lord. This silver-armored burly man in front of him was the quasi-saint realm expert whom Ning Fan had fought that day. Ning Fan failed to kill this person that day, and he managed to escape. However, he did not expect this person to appear in front of him again at this time and place. Enemies are really bound to meet on a narrow road. It's actually you. Looks like that sludge monster did not lie. Someone has really invaded my light ant territory. However, I didn't expect that the intruder would be you. The wound that you left on me at that time is still aching until today. Since I've met you, I might as well put an end to the enmity of that day. As soon as the silver-armored quasi-saint saw that the intruder was Ning Fan, his eyes immediately turned ferocious. His hatred was monstrous. Of course, within that hatred, there was also a hint of fear towards Ning Fan. That day when he fought against Ning Fan in the Antlord's nest, he was not Ning Fan's match at all because Ning Fan's Yin-Yang sect protecting sword was too powerful. Ning Fan's figure that looked down upon the world with a single sword had left a deep shadow in his heart. Luckily, he remembered that even though Ning Fan had defeated him at that time, he had also broken his high-grade innate treasure sword during the battle. That day, I fled back to the 12th floor in a sorry state. My injuries were already on the verge of death. Fortunately, Great Priestess Inmu used her primordial essence to heal me. My injuries only took a few days to fully recover. Moreover, The great priestess gave me a treasure and ordered me to use it to take revenge. I must kill the madman who destroyed Empress Mother's nest. My current strength is much stronger than before. As for this young man, his high-grade innate treasure sword is broken and his strength has declined greatly. That day, he only won against me by relying on the advantage of his magic treasure. Today, I will crush this young man with absolute strength and avenge my humiliation. This time, the silver-armored quasi-saint's heart was filled with absolute confidence. He did not say anything else. The silver-armored quasi-saint landed on the ground. His entire body turned into a silver giant of light. Stepping on the flaming ground, he charged at Ningfan. We've only just met, and he's already activated his immemorial true body? Last time, he was forced to activate his immemorial true body after fighting to the very end. It seems that the immemorial true body has become very unstable due to the fusion of so many experts. I didn't expect his eternal true body to become so much more stable after just a few days. Ningfan's expression turned slightly solemn. After the silver-armored quasi-saint activated his eternal true body, the chi of his magic power rose to the tribulation level of 12,000. Upon seeing this, Ningfan also shook his body and turned into a giant body made of golden flames. His magic power also skyrocketed, increasing from 14,800 tribulation to 15,800 tribulation. The purity of Ningfan's magic power was not high. However, the silver-armored quasi-saint was also just a fusion body. His magic power's purity was not high. In that case, Ningfan's magic power had an absolute advantage when facing this false quasi-saint. Even without the yin and yang sect protecting sword, he was still not afraid of him. In just a short moment, the golden flame giant and the silver-armored quasi-saint had already exchanged hundreds of blows. The latter was obviously at a disadvantage. The situation on the battlefield was beyond the silver-armored quasi-saint's expectation. With the help of the great priestess Yin Mother, his eternal true body had become much more stable. Initially, he thought that he could reduce the gap between his cultivation base and Ningfan's after his strength improved. However, he did not expect that the gap between their cultivation bases had actually widened again when they met again. Impossible. The last time we met, this young man's magic power was just 14,200 tribulations. Why did his magic power increase to 600 tribulations in less than 2 months? How could there be such a monstrous genius in this world who could improve his cultivation base so much in such a short period of time? Could it be that the omniscient old lunatic had helped him? Could the research of that old lunatic really be able to improve one's strength? The more the silver-armored quasi-saint fought, the more astonished he became. At first, he thought that Ningfan's strength would be greatly reduced after losing his high-grade innate magic treasure. However, he did not expect that Ningfan could still beat him to a pulp with his bare hands without using any magic treasures. What kind of halo is that crisscrossing cross? What kind of divine ability is that body technique that can allow him to launch consecutive attacks? Last time, Ningfan had the yin and yang sect protecting sword in his hand. He did not need to use any other divine abilities, and he could easily defeat the silver-armored quasi-saint. This time, however, it was different. Even if the silver-armored quasi-saint was not a true quasi-saint, he was still not someone to be underestimated. Ningfan did not dare to underestimate his opponent. Thus, he immediately used his trump card, the cross halo and the ancient devil mountain breaking strike. The cross halo emitted a dazzling black light. Under the effect of this halo, Ningfan's magic power was endless. His attacks were also big and powerful. The silver-armored quasi-saint found it hard to endure such a method of fighting without caring about the consumption of magic power. Ningfan's fists were even more powerful. The momentum of his fists were connected, and each punch was stronger than the previous one. Under the storm-like attacks, the silver-armored quasi-saint could only defend himself. How could he have the strength to fight back? What kind of joke is this? This young man can actually still be so strong without his high-grade innate magic treasure. Even in the Light Ant clan, this kind of strength is already enough for him to be ranked in the top 5. There is no way I can defeat him. Heaven battling Jade Umbrella, protect me quickly. Fortunately, the silver-armored quasi-saint had the magic treasure given to him by the high priest to protect himself this time. As soon as they exchanged blows, he was already stunned by Ning Fan's attacks. How would he dare to hold back anymore? At once, he spat out a ray of green light which turned into a large green umbrella that glowed with jade light. It was a mid-grade innate magic treasure which was used to protect one's life. As soon as the umbrella was opened, jade light that looked like tassels poured down from the sky like the Milky Way, enveloping the silver-armored quasi-saint. This umbrella's light was really impressive. Under the protection of the umbrella's light, the physical body of the silver-armored quasi-saint actually became stronger by more than 10%. This umbrella's light seemed to be able to strengthen its owner's physical body. Moreover, this kind of strengthening was not only in the area of defense but also in the area of physical attacks. With the help of this umbrella, the silver-armored quasi-saint obviously had a much easier time fighting against Ning Fan. Unfortunately, he only managed to relax for a short while. Not long after, he was no longer able to defeat Ning Fan. 10% of his physical body's strength only allowed him to temporarily take a breather against Ning Fan's torrential attacks. As the number of consecutive hits increased, Ning Fan's attacks became fiercer and fiercer. When the silver-armored quasi-saint only managed to hit 6,000 consecutive hits, he could no longer hold on. He was a quasi-saint realm expert who used the secret technique of the Light Ant clan to fuse with his body. This kind of fusion was very unstable. At this moment, the silver-armored quasi-saint could no longer withstand the force of Ning Fan's punches. The fusion in his body immediately showed signs of collapsing. This shocked and terrified the silver-armored quasi-saint. He could not even defeat Ning Fan with his cultivation base at the quasi-saint realm. If he separates himself from his body and reverts to his true form, the few immortal emperors and half-step saints in his true form would probably not be a match for Ning Fan. It seems like I can't take revenge anymore. What I need to do now is to use a secret technique to escape from Ning Fan's hands like I did last time. Immortal Ant-Evasion Technique. CHI.AS an ear-piercing sound echoed in the air. The silver-armored quasi-saint who was fighting against Ning Fan directly vanished from Ning Fan's sight without any warning. In just an instant he flew a distance of a few flaming continents. Knowing that he was no match for Ning Fan, he wanted to run away. Ning Fan's expression immediately turned slightly unpleasant. The immortal ant-evasion technique was not the fastest evasion technique in the world. However, it was definitely one of the fastest evasion techniques in the world. As everyone knew, low-grade techniques such as teleportation while high-grade techniques such as the various grade evasion techniques required a process of charging up. All of them needed to activate their magic power before they could move. Even if Ning Fan's speed was heaven-defying, he still needed to shake his body or take a few steps before he wanted to move. There must be a process involved. No matter how short the process would be, it must exist. However, the immortal ant-evasion technique that the silver-armored quasi-saint used completely ignored this common sense. The activation of this technique came without any signs. It did not require any movement, or even the activation of magic power. With just a thought, the user would already be able to fly beyond the 9 heavens. There was no need for him to even take a single step. Previously, the silver-armored quasi-saint had used this kind of rare escape technique to escape from Ning Fan's hands. This time he used the same trick again and successfully escaped from Ning Fan's sight. This made Ning Fan very displeased. He had already secretly taken precautions against the silver-armored quasi-saint escaping, but he still failed to do so. Could it be that I can only block this technique by sealing the heavens and locking the earth in advance? Unfortunately, the encounter with the silver-armored quasi-saint this time was too hasty. Ning Fan did not have the chance to seal the heavens and lock the earth at all. How can it be so easy to escape from my hands? Last time, the nest of the Ant Lord exploded. I couldn't even protect myself. That's why I couldn't catch you and let you escape. This time it's different. You can take the first step, but don't think about taking the second step. Ning Fan took a step forward and disappeared from heaven and earth. Almost at the same time, the silver-armored quasi-saint who was running for his life a few continents away suddenly felt a sharp pain on his body. He crashed into a wall. The wall in front of him was a ferocious giant made of golden flames. Ningfan's speed was just too fast. Even though he was one step slower than the silver-armored quasi-saint, he still managed to catch up to him easily with his second step. I'm only going to ask you once. Where is that lump of mud now? Ningfan's true body said ruthlessly. Humph. What kind of identity do I have to answer you? If you want to know the whereabouts of the mud demon, then exchange it with your life. The immortal ant-evasion technique, 9 consecutive steps. Without any warning, the silver-armored quasi-saint disappeared from Ningfan's sight once again. At the same time, 9 consecutive ear-piercing sounds could be heard. This time, the silver-armored quasi-saint did not care about the price he had to pay. He instantly activated the immortal ant-evasion technique 9 times and teleported 9 times. Even though this technique did not require any starting speed, it placed a huge burden on the body. 9 steps using the immortal ant-evasion technique was the limit of a silver-armored quasi-saint. After taking 9 consecutive steps, the silver-armored quasi-saint disappeared even faster and further away, causing Ningfan's heaven-sealing technique to miss its target. Even if the heaven-sealing technique could be used as fast as lightning, it would still require some time to act. However, the immortal ant-evasion technique did not require any starting speed at all. It was not something that the heaven-sealing technique could fix. Ancient Demon Flash Technique. Huh? I didn't expect to see 2 lost ancient demon abilities in just one day. Unfortunately, you still can't escape. Qi Ningfan took a step forward and blocked the path of the silver-armored quasi-saint once again. This time, the silver-armored quasi-saint finally felt astonished. Even though he was just a pseudo-quasi-saint, his speed was definitely not slow. Even if the speed of a single step was not as fast as a true quasi-saint, it was not much slower. When he took 9 steps, his speed would definitely surpass that of an ordinary quasi-saint. However, even though his speed was comparable to a quasi-saint, Ningfan easily caught up with him with just a single step. Moreover, Ningfan still needed some time to charge up his strength. What a great blow it was! His fastest speed that he could ignore was actually no match for Ningfan's casual step. Who exactly are you? With so many heaven-defying abilities, it's impossible for you to be a nobody in this age of Dharma decline. Why have I never heard of you before? As soon as he spoke, the silver-armored quasi-saint used the same trick again, trying to escape from Ningfan's sight. However, this time, the immortal ant-evasion technique that had always been successful failed. He was actually stopped by Ningfan's heaven-sealing technique. Impossible. My evasion technique doesn't need any starting point. It will always be faster than your imitating reincarnation technique. How can I possibly be stopped by you? The silver-armored quasi-saint could no longer maintain his composure. His expression changed drastically. With the difference in magic power between him and Ningfan, he would need at least 1 breath to break free from Ningfan's heaven-sealing technique. This 1 breath was enough for Ningfan to throw 100 punches at him. Ningfan, of course, would not waste this precious time to explain to his enemy. The speed of the heaven-sealing technique is slower than the immortal ant-evasion technique? So what? I just need to predict the direction you are going to escape to and attack in advance. Be it the Light Ant Clan's fusion technique, or the seemingly heaven-defying immortal ant-evasion technique, there was no such thing as a flawless technique in this world. See Defying Sword appear. The sword light that was filled with the chi of ocean waves whizzed past, and penetrated the body of the silver-armored quasi-saint. 1 breath's time was up. The silver-armored quasi-saint regained his ability to move. However, he was coughing out blood profusely. He was severely injured. The power of the heavenly Magatama kept exploding inside his body, severely injuring his internal organs, and making him suffer unbearable pain. After all, he was a pseudo-quasi-saint. Besides, he had the heaven-battling Jade Umbrella to enhance his offense and defense. Thus, it was impossible for him to be killed by the sea-defying sword. However, this sword attack had seriously injured him. He was afraid. He tried to flee again in panic and used 9 consecutive steps. However, he was stopped by Ningfan at another fiery continent. Another sword strike penetrated his physical body. His injuries were even worse. The silver-armored quasi-saint tried to flee again. Ning Fan chased after him and slashed at him again. The silver-armored quasi-saint wanted to send a message to ask for help. However, his voice and spirit sense were all blocked by Ning Fan. Even the fluctuations of his attacks were perfectly concealed by Ning Fan. Ning Fan would never forget where he was. This place was the deepest part of the Light Ant Clan's nest, the 12th level of the Earth Abyss. If he does not restrict the movements in this place, it would be hard to guarantee that other experts of the Light Ant Clan would come to his aid. By then he would not be able to kill this person with absolute certainty. A quasi-saint was extremely difficult to kill. Even a pseudo-quasi-saint would not be that easy to kill. After chasing after him for 1 hour, the silver-armored quasi-saint had been slashed by Ning Fan thousands of times. There was not a single part of his body that was left unscathed. He was finally unable to maintain the Light Ant fusion. After the fusion and separation, his body exploded and turned into several dying immortal emperors and half-saints of the Light Ant race. We can't fight this person head-on. Let's split up and run. The experts of the Light Ant Clan had a beautiful plan. Unfortunately, even when they fused together, they were still being toyed with by Ning Fan. Now that they were separated, how could they possibly escape from under Ning Fan's nose? With just a single immemorial rainy night illusory technique, Ning Fan had pulled all of the experts of the Light Ant Clan into his illusory world and killed them. If they fused together, they would have the strength of a quasi-saint realm expert. Ning Fan would have to spend some effort to deal with them. If they are separated, he would just end up killing them one by one. In the illusory world of the ancient rainy night, Ning Fan had already interrogated a few experts of the Light Ant Clan and found out the whole story of how the sludge monster was captured. That lump of mud was really taken away. The kindness of a meal must be repaid, and the grievances of a small grudge must be avenged. This sludge monster had made nearly 70 bowls of meat soup for him. He couldn't just watch it die. He still wanted to subdue this pet. The moment the silver-armored quasi-sage was killed, the entire Light Ant tribe was shaken. When the life tablets of the few Light Ant experts who had fused with the silver-armored quasi-sage shattered at the same time, none of the Light Ant experts could remain calm. Even the powerful second-tier quasi-sage Mother Een High Priestess was so shocked that her beautiful eyes were filled with killing intent. Who was it that actually dared to kill all of the Ant tribe? Who could kill a fusion realm quasi-sage of the Light Ant tribe? The dignity of the Holy Ant sect cannot be violated. The culprit was still on the 12th floor. It seemed that he was the accomplice of the sludge demon. Pass down my order. The 4 lineages of the Holy Ant sect are to temporarily put aside their grudges. Apart from the candidate for the queen, everyone else is to come out and hunt down the red-named maniac. The Light Ant clan was in the midst of the Ant Queen election. As a candidate for the Ant Queen, the High Priestess of Mother Een had to prepare for the battle for the Ant Queen. She couldn't be distracted to catch the culprit. However, it did not mean that she would allow him to do whatever he wanted on the 12th floor. Ant Art, red name Art of Heaven's Will. High Priest Mother Een did not hesitate to pay a small price to use this divine art. She kept forming hand seals with her 10 slender fingers, leaving afterimages in the air. At the same time, Ning Fan, who was at a great distance away, suddenly felt a gaze coming from the sky just as he withdrew his eternal true body. His expression changed. Countless rays of red light appeared out of thin air and converged 3 feet above his head, forming 3 large blood-red characters. Merciless killing. The 3 blood-red words were born from heaven and earth. Ning Fan could not erase them no matter what methods he used. As long as the 3 blood-red words were hanging above his head, Ning Fan felt that he was always being targeted by the Light Ant tribe. From afar, there seemed to be an endless stream of experts of the Light Ant tribe following the guidance of the 3 blood-red words and charging towards Ning Fan. No, it was not just the experts of the Light Ant tribe who were attracted by the 3 blood-red words. As far as his eyes could see, the ground of the fiery land would crack open from time to time and endless corpse slaves would emerge from the ground. Their killing intent directly locked onto Ning Fan from a great distance away. The 3 blood-red words above Ning Fan's head were like the brightest stars in the vast starry sky. Anyone could find him, but he could not use his spirit sense and rain technique to sense the danger in the distance in this 12th level of the Earth Abyss. It seems like the matter of me killing a silver-armored quasi-sage has really enraged the powerful existence of the Light Ant tribe. Their strength is far above mine. Therefore, if I don't have any special methods, I won't be able to remove the blood-red words above my head at all. An endless pursuit is coming soon. It seems like I can no longer cultivate in the 12th level of the Earth Abyss in a low-profile manner. Ningfan sighed. Can't this little mud wait for me to complete my magic power purification before creating trouble for me? Fine. Since I can't keep a low profile, I'll just make a big scene. Little friend Ning, why are you here? Suddenly, a voice came from afar and flew over. It was the voice of the quasi-sage of the Four-Fish sect, Old Ancestor Lei Zhe. It turned out that after Old Ancestor Lei Zhe entered the Guangzhou Earth Abyss that day, he had searched every level to search for Bei Xiaoman. However, he could not find her whereabouts or Ningfan. He had searched all the way to the 12th level, but he still could not find any trace of Bei Xiaoman. However, it was not surprising. Bei Xiaoman had gone to the omniscient old man's secret research base to cause trouble. How could he find her? It was imaginable how much pressure Old Ancestor Lei Zhe was under during these days. Bei Xiaoman held a very special meaning to the entire Northern Heaven. If she dies in the Earth Abyss, many people would be secretly happy, but it would also give many old monsters in the Northern Heaven, including Old Ancestor Lei Zhe, a headache. Bei Xiaoman must not die. He must save this little girl for the survival of the Northern Heaven. But where is Bei Xiaoman? Old Ancestor Lei Zhe had been searching for her for almost 2 months, but he still could not find her whereabouts. Unexpectedly, he met Ningfan in the 12th level. When the blood-red words appeared above Ningfan's head, a blood-red light shot up to the sky. Since he was the closest to Ningfan, he was the first one to arrive. Initially, he thought he could find some clues about Bei Xiaoman by following the blood-red light. Unexpectedly, he met Ningfan in the 12th level. Senior Lei Zhe, why are you here? Ningfan was also surprised. He also did not expect to meet Lei Zhe on the 12th floor. Sigh, it's a long story. It's all because of a certain stinky girl. I couldn't find her no matter how hard I tried. However, her identity was special, so this old man had no choice but to look for her. Hiss. The bloody words on your head, could it be? Just as the Luai's patriarch was sighing, his expression changed drastically. He seemed to be a little slow. His reaction arc seemed to be a little too long. Why did he just realize that there were such terrifying bloody words above Ningfan's head? This was the Sacred Ant Sect's blood-written bounty. Just what was this kid doing on the 12th level of the Earth Abyss? Could it be that he was openly declaring war against a colossus like the Holy Ant Sect? Was he crazy? Didn't they know that even a quasi-sage like him had to lower his head and compromise with the Holy Ant Sect? That was an existence that even the entire Light Clan could not deal with. What on earth had this kid done? The sluggish Lei Zhe patriarch finally noticed the corpses nearby. They were the corpses of a few Light Ant race's immortal emperors and half-saints. These corpses showed signs of fusing with each other before they died. You killed a fusion stage quasi-sage of the Holy Ant Sect. You actually killed a fusion stage quasi-sage of the Holy Ant Sect. That's a quasi-sage. The Luai's patriarch's face turned pale with fright. This time, Ningfan was really going to pierce through the sky. If this matter is not handled well, not only will he and Ningfan not be able to walk out of the Earth Abyss alive, but the entire Northern Heaven will also face a great calamity. Chapter 1197. Ningfan was not concerned about Old Ancestor Lei Zhe's shock. He had done many lawless things in the past. Offending the Holy Ant Sect was a little troublesome, but it wasn't a big deal. It took him a lot of effort to get rid of the silver-armored quasi-saint. He did not even have the time to collect his spoils of war. The experts of the Light Ant clan who had fused with the quasi-saint were all killed by the illusion. The Light Ant was a member of the Dao Hun clan. Instead of cultivating their demon souls, they cultivated their Dao souls. When these experts died, Ningfan kept their Dao souls into the divine refining cauldron, and refined them into 10,000 spirit blood, becoming his first spoils of war. The second spoil of war was an immortal emperor-level light ant inner core. After a light ant dies, it would not produce a Dao fruit. Instead, it would produce an inner core. The probability of producing an inner core was extremely low. If he could obtain an immortal emperor's inner core, Ningfan's cultivation base would improve significantly. The third reward was the mid-grade Khanate magic treasure, the Heaven Battle Jade Umbrella. He already had a lot of mid-grade innate magical treasures, so he wasn't too excited when he obtained this treasure. He bent his palm and grabbed the heaven-defying jade umbrella from the side of one of the light ant corpses. He held it in his hand and carefully examined it. When he held the umbrella in his hand, a wave of rain and tint immediately blew against his face, making him feel as if he was bathing in a cool breeze. When the umbrella was opened and slightly moved, immortal light turned into thousands of strands of silk ribbons, enveloping Ningfan within the faint green light. After being enveloped by the green light, Ningfan immediately felt that his physical body had become much stronger. His strength, agility, defense, every aspect of his body had been enhanced by more than 10%. This umbrella seemed to be more practical than he had imagined. It was no wonder that the silver-armored quasi-saint was able to resist his ancient devil mountain-breaking strike for a short period of time with this umbrella. Could this umbrella be the heaven-defying jade umbrella? Old ancestor Lei Zhe was astonished once again. It was different from when he heard that Ningfan had pierced through the heavens. This time, he was not shocked but surprised. Does Senior recognize this umbrella? Ningfan was surprised. The Luai's ancestral patriarch walked over and examined it carefully. After confirming that it was really the heaven-battling jade umbrella, he became even more excited. Of course I do. That's the treasure that the 8 children of the Water Sect used to attack the East Heaven Ancestral Emperor. However, as far as I know, the treasure was lost a long time ago. The Water School has been searching for it this entire time, but who would have thought that it would be in the Light Ancestor Earth Abyss? The 8 children of the Water Sect besieged the Eastern Sky Ancestor Emperor? Oh, there seems to be such a thing. Ningfan remembered that he had once met another reincarnation of Aphrodite in a secret place. That secret place was also the burial place of the 8 disciples of the Water Sect. The Water Sect's 8 children were elders of the same generation as the East Sky Ancestor Emperor. It was rumored that the Water Sect's 8 children had once joined hands to besiege the East Sky Ancestor Emperor, and had ultimately won. Although this battle was a one-sided battle, it still caused the reputation of the Water Sect's 8 disciples to soar. However, there was one thing that puzzled Ningfan. Judging from old ancestor Lei Zhe's tone, he seemed to hold this umbrella in high esteem. However, according to Ningfan's observation, even though this umbrella was quite powerful, it did not seem to be heaven-defying enough to make a dignified quasi-saint realm expert lose his composure. Is this umbrella very powerful? Ningfan asked. Amazing, of course it's amazing. This was a Rain Master's titled weapon. It is the dream treasure of all rain cultivators. Leisha Ancestor explained. Titled weapon? What's that? The so-called titled weapons are innate magic treasures that are refined using special materials and techniques. The difficulty of forging them is more than 10,000 times that of innate magic treasures of the same grade. Thus, their rarity is also more than 10,000 times that of ordinary innate magic treasures. When ordinary people use titled weapons, they can only display the basic properties of the titled weapons. Only cultivators with the corresponding titled weapons can activate the hidden properties of this treasure. Even though Ningfan did not really understand it, he felt that this umbrella was very powerful. The Water Sect values this item very much. If Little Friend returns this item to them, they are even willing to give you 3 mid-grade innate magic treasures of the same grade as them in return. Return? Why do I have to return it? Didn't Senior say that the difficulty of forging this umbrella is more than 10,000 times that of innate magic treasures of the same grade? It's too much of a waste to exchange such a rare treasure for a few ordinary mid-grade innate magic treasures. Ningfan shook his head. When he looked at the heaven-battling jade umbrella again, his eyes were filled with a hint of seriousness. Since this umbrella is so precious, why do I have to return it to the Water Sect? I'm also a rain cultivator. Besides, My yin-yang rain technique is already half a step into the sovereign realm. It's just a matter of time before I reach the sovereign realm. If I have the time to cultivate the title of rain, Ningfan would also be willing to cultivate the sovereign realm and the titled realm at the same time. If I really achieve the title of rain one day, I would then be qualified to use the hidden properties of this umbrella. Since this umbrella is so highly regarded by old ancestor Lei Zhe, the hidden properties of this umbrella might be extremely powerful. What? This heaven-battling jade umbrella has belonged to the water sect since ancient times. You actually didn't return it to them after obtaining it. If they find out about this, they won't let you go easily. Wouldn't it be fine as long as I don't let them know about it? This treasure has changed owners a few times and eventually, it fell into my hands. Since it's in my hands, it's mine. I'm willing to return this treasure to the water sect out of kindness. However, I'm not willing to return it because it's my duty. Could it be that after Senior kills people and snatches their treasures, you still have to investigate the origins of your spoils of war and return them to their rightful owners? I've never heard of any cultivators who are so kind in my entire life. Ningfan said disapprovingly. What you said makes sense. But it's still inappropriate. What if the water sect finds out about this? Even though the water sect isn't as strong as the Holy Ant sect or the Light Clan, it's still considered as one of the strongest forces in the Northern Heaven. You've already offended the Holy Ant sect. It's inappropriate to leave a hidden danger that might offend the water sect alive. Old ancestor Lei Zhe was really concerned about Ningfan's situation. After all, Ningfan was a member of the Black Devil sect. He was a branch of the Two-Form sect. He could not just ignore Ningfan's safety. Ningfan was too lazy to discuss this matter with old ancestor Lei Zhe anymore. Everything about old ancestor Lei Zhe was good except that he had a weak temper. He was afraid of the Purple Clan, the Holy Ant sect and the Water sect. If he continues to cultivate the Tao, he would have to be afraid of everything instead. Wouldn't it be too meaningless to cultivate the Tao? Little friend, this umbrella should still be returned. Old ancestor Lei Zhe still wanted to persuade Ningfan. Suddenly, his wrinkled face trembled and his expression changed greatly. It turned out that while he was chatting with Ningfan, many experts of the light ants and corpse slaves had already arrived in front of him, by following the light of the blood-red characters above Ningfan's head. The first one to arrive was a quasi-saint of the Light Ant clan who had 6 Zhonglong light wings. He was not a fusion stage quasi-saint. He was a genuine quasi-saint. His magic power had reached 13,000 tribulations. The sense of threat he gave Ningfan was far greater than that of the silver-armored quasi-saint from before. Ningfan could kill a fusion stage quasi-saint like the silver-armored quasi-saint within an hour. However, it was impossible for him to kill a true quasi-saint within a short period of time. It's the general under Mother Yin, revered Eagle Yang. This person's strength is slightly weaker than mine. However, he is much stronger than those fusion stage quasi-saints. Don't underestimate him. Old ancestor Lei Zhe's expression changed. With just a few words, he exposed the identity of the newcomer. He seemed to be very familiar with the quasi-saint experts of the Light Ant clan. Humph. It turns out that fellow Taoist Lei Zhe is also here. Could it be that this matter is also related to you? Didn't you say that you came to the 12th floor just to look for someone? Why did you kill the disciples of my Holy Ant sect? Revered Eagle Yang shouted angrily. Fuck. I'm just passing by. This matter has nothing to do with me, alright? Old ancestor Lei Zhe wanted to cry but had no tears. Why did he come here to watch the show? Now he was involved in the trouble that Ningfan had caused. Even if he explains it to the Holy Ant sect, would they believe him? Besides, could he really watch Ningfan being hunted by the Holy Ant sect alone without doing anything? No one knew how deep the Luai's ancestral patriarch's feelings for the Yin-Yang sect were. Ningfan was a member of the Black Devil sect. He was a branch of the Yin-Yang sect. If Ningfan is killed by the Holy Ant sect, the lineage of the Yin-Yang sect would probably be cut off. This matter is indeed related to me. Isn't it just a fusion stage quasi-saint? I've already killed him. What else can I do? At most, I'll give your Holy Ant sect some compensation. Then this matter will be resolved into nothing. Old ancestor Lei Zhe actually did not deny his involvement. Instead, he took the initiative to bear part of the responsibility. Ning Fan's expression changed slightly. Of course, he could see that old ancestor Lei Zhe was worried that it would be too dangerous for him to face the Holy Ant sect alone. Thus, he wanted to accompany him to take the risk. He's really a good person. He's obviously afraid of the Holy Ant sect, but he still wants to face them together with me. However, this person's character is really too weak. The other party has already come to kill him, but he still wants to talk to him about resolving the matter into nothing. What's the point? Sure enough, the weak tone of old ancestor Lei Zhe did not calm revered Eagle Yang's killing intent. Instead, it made him even more arrogant. The death of a fusion stage quasi-saint is indeed not a big deal. However, because of this matter, the dignity of my Holy Ant sect has been tarnished. All of you must pay with your lives. Revered Eagle Yang pressed a point of silver light on his fingertip. In an instant, the entire heaven and earth were dyed silver. A silver rift appeared on the ground, and a gigantic corpse slave crawled out of the rift. That corpse slave was not an ordinary corpse slave. Instead, it was more like an amalgamation of countless corpse slaves. Its cultivation base had also reached the quasi-saint realm. Moreover, it seemed to have gained spiritual intelligence. The difficulty of dealing with it was no less than a true quasi-saint. From afar, there were other immortal venerables corpse slaves rushing towards them. As soon as they arrived, they fused with the corpse slave's body, causing its cultivation base to continue to rise. It seemed like the more corpse slaves it fused with, the stronger it would become. Damn it! The Holy Ant sect has really gone mad. They even summoned their corpse slave king. Let's go. Revered Eagle Yang is still relatively easy to deal with, but this corpse slave king is one of the most terrifying beings. Even if I face this corpse slave king, I will probably be severely injured or even killed. How would old ancestor Lei Zhe dare to fight against the corpse slave king? He used his wind escape technique and brought Ning Fan away with him. They rode the tornado and fled a great distance away. Obviously, he did not want to fight with revered Eagle Yang and the corpse slave king. It was a wise decision. Revered Eagle Yang and the corpse slave king were not the only experts of the Light Ant clan. If they get entangled with them, the other experts of the Light Ant clan would arrive soon. By then they would really be in danger. However, Ning Fan did not want to escape at all. He had no idea where his little mud was suffering. He still had to save it. How could he keep running away? He had already used an illusion technique to interrogate Little Mud's location. His top priority now was not to run away, but to save Little Mud. However, if he continued to ask Little Mud to cook soup for him, the Holy Ant sect cannot be defeated by force. I will bring you all the way up and escape from the earth abyss. Sigh. I really hope that we can escape from here. I haven't lived long enough. It would be a pity if I were to die with you. Inside the tornado, old ancestor Lei Zhe's face was as dark as still water. What Ning Fan was facing was the pursuit of the Holy Ant sect. The situation was much more serious than he imagined. In his opinion, the chances of Ning Fan leaving the earth abyss alive was close to zero. Even with his help, it would be difficult for Ning Fan to leave this place alive. Senior, don't be in a hurry to escape. I still have a place on the 12th floor that I want to go to. What? You're already in big trouble, yet you're not thinking about running for your life. Where do you think you're going? The Luai's patriarch's face turned green. He was unhappy, very unhappy. As the saying goes, the eunuchs are anxious when the emperor is not anxious. He was extremely worried about Ning Fan, but Ning Fan acted as if nothing had happened to him. How could he still want to stroll around the 12th floor? Wait a minute. Ning Fan is the emperor while he is a eunuch? This analogy is not good. It should be the other way around. It's the eunuchs who are anxious, but the emperor is not. There seems to be something wrong. I must go to this place. My pet is still in the hands of the Holy Ant sect. What? Your pet was captured by the Holy Ant sect? It's just a pet. It doesn't matter if I throw it away. As long as I can escape today, I'll just catch another one in the future. Old ancestor Lei Zhe was about to go crazy. Surely Ning Fan wouldn't risk the sacred ant sect's pursuit to save a pet, would he? Even if it was a joke, it shouldn't be like this. Haha, it will be difficult to meet such an interesting little mud in the future. I must save this little mud. Senior, don't worry, I don't fear the Holy Ant sect at all. According to the information I obtained from the interrogation using my illusion technique, the structure of the experts in the Holy Ant sect is very interesting. The strongest group of quasi-saints is actually all women. If they encounter me, I'm afraid those female quasi-saints will suffer a great loss. As for those male quasi-saints, none of them have magic power over 15,000 tribulations. They won't pose much of a threat to me. Ningfan seemed to have obtained some kind of information which made him extremely confident in defeating the Holy Ant sect. Women. So what if they are women? As long as they are strong, they can't be underestimated. You might not have heard of the 4 beauties of the Holy Ant sect. Among the 4 beauties, even though the Empress Huahua is just a newly advanced quasi-saint, she is not to be underestimated. As for the great priestess Yin Mu, the great general Hong Lian, and the dethroned Emperor Huaxi, all of them are stronger than me, especially the great priestess Yin Mu. I heard that she had obtained a great opportunity in recent years, and advanced to the 2nd level quasi-saint realm. If it wasn't because of the battle against the Ant Queen, she alone would be enough to crush both of us. The scariest thing is that the motherfucker of the Holy Ant sect actually knows how to fuse. Do you know that when the Holy Ant calamity first appeared, the Light Clan had tried to eliminate the Holy Ant sect? However, after the quasi-saints of the Holy Ant sect fused with each other, they actually produced an ancient great cultivator, greatly damaging the Light Clan's vitality. In the end, they could only compromise with the Holy Ant sect. Oh. Ningfan had already obtained all this information from the interrogation. Thus, he just gave a simple reply. Old Ancestor Leisure was even more devastated. He had said a long string of words, but Ningfan only replied with a no. What does this feeling of punching a cotton ball mean? Old Ancestor Leisure had made up his mind. No matter what, he would not accompany Ningfan to the Holy Ant sect to save his pets. Even if he has to tie Ningfan up, he would tie Ningfan up and run for his life. A bunch of trash that only knows how to run. Unfortunately, you can't escape. No matter which direction you go, the experts of my Holy Ant sect will be waiting for you. Revered Eagle Yang sat cross-legged on the corpse slave king's giant shoulder, and chased after Old Ancestor Leisure and Ningfan. Old Ancestor Leisure was a cultivator with the Wind Count title. His speed was extremely fast. Revered Eagle Yang could not catch up with him no matter how hard he tried. Thus, he simply sat on the corpse slave king's shoulder, and treated it as his mount to save some of his magic power. Then he slowly chased after Old Ancestor Leisure and Old Ancestor Leisure like a cat chasing after a mouse. After chasing for an unknown period of time, Revered Eagle Yang suddenly raised his brows and smiled. He could feel it. The reinforcements of the Holy Ant sect were right in front of them. Moreover, the ones blocking their way were the princess of the Holy Ant sect, Huahua, and Her Highness Huahua's Ant General, Kubixiong. Now, with him and the corpse slave king behind them, and Her Highness Huahua and Kubixiong blocking their way in front of them, Leisure and Old Ancestor Leisure would not be able to escape even if they grow wings. However, didn't the Great Priest order that the candidate of the Ant Queen does not need to come personally? He didn't expect that Her Highness Huahua would actually show up personally to capture the criminals, just to gain some merit points for the battle for the Ant Queen. This lady is really unscrupulous. The Old Ancestor of Leisure controlled the tornado to carry Ningfan away. All of a sudden, the tornado seemed to have encountered a huge resistance. It could not move forward at all and was forced back. The resistance grew stronger and stronger. Eventually, Luai's Patriarch's tornado was stopped in its tracks, unable to advance any further. Then, above the fiery sky, a man and a woman appeared with a flash. Obviously, they were the ones who had stopped the Old Ancestor of Leisure from escaping. As soon as he saw the two of them blocking his way, the Old Ancestor of Leisure's face darkened. His luck was too bad. He was actually stopped by a quasi-saint realm expert, and a fusion stage quasi-saint. That quasi-saint realm expert was none other than the princess of the Holy Ant sect, Huahua. Even though she had just advanced to the quasi-saint realm, she was extremely difficult to deal with, because she was a candidate of the Ant Queen. Leisha remembered that the fusion stage quasi-saint realm expert was called Kubixiong. He was also one of the few experts in the Holy Ant sect. This is bad. This is really bad. In total, there are 3 quasi-saints and 1 fusion stage quasi-saint. Even if we fight with our lives on the line, we will most likely die. The old ancestor of Leisha's expression turned extremely ugly. However, even at this critical moment of life and death, he did not have the slightest thought of abandoning Ningfan and escaping on his own. It was as if Ningfan's identity as the successor of the Yin-Yang sect was countless times more important than his own life. At this moment, Ningfan was genuinely interested in the predecessor of the Black Devil sect, the Yin-Yang sect. What kind of existence was this sect that the old ancestor of Leisha valued more than his own life? Leisha, since you insist on getting involved in this matter, don't blame my Holy Ant sect for being merciless. Today you must die. The lady called Huahua saw the old ancestor of Leisha who was controlling the wind in the tornado at first glance. Her tone was extremely cold and arrogant, as if the old ancestor of Leisha was just an ant that could be squashed to death at any time in the eyes of her Holy Ant sect. Then Huahua saw Ningfan. She was surprised at first, and then felt that it was a pity. She had seen Ningfan before on the first floor. At that time, her subordinate, Kubixiong, wanted to fight Ningfan, but she stopped him. One of the reasons was that she could see Ningfan's strength. She was worried that Kubixiong would be in danger if they fought. She did not want to lose her only ant general before the battle for the Queen Ant. The second reason was that she actually had the intention to recruit Ningfan. That was why she expressed her goodwill to him. The battle for the Queen Ant needed helpers. Even though Ningfan was an outsider, it was not like the Holy Ant sect had never looked for outsiders as helpers before. Other people could look for outsiders to be their helpers. Why couldn't she do the same? Unfortunately, Ningfan just had to kill the Sacred Ant sect's integration stage quasi-saint. In that case, he would have to fight the Holy Ant sect to the death. She had no choice but to give up the idea of recruiting Ningfan. The Holy Ant sect's reputation was not to be violated. Those who hurt the Holy Ant's finger would have their entire sect killed. I didn't expect that we would meet again so soon. Unfortunately, I have to kill you with my own hands this time to gain some support for the battle for the Queen Ant. Huahua let out a sigh and said to Ningfan, who was in the tornado from a distance. Her tone made it seem like she was very reluctant to kill Ningfan. However, Ningfan knew that her reluctance was just a disguise. She just wanted to make him lower his guard. Besides, her words were just to buy time. After all, old ancestor Leize's speed was not slow. As one of them ran and the other chased, they had already left a considerable distance behind Venerable Eagle Yang, who was chasing after them. Huahua needed to buy some time for Venerable Eagle Yang to catch up to them. Then they would attack Ningfan together. That way their chances of winning would be the highest. Both Ningfan and old ancestor Leize were not weaklings. Huahua was not arrogant enough to think that she could take down 2 experts from the other party, with just Kubixiong, who was an integration stage quasi-saint. This woman is trying to buy time. Ignore her. Let's take a detour before old man Eagle Yang catches up to us. Old ancestor Leize said anxiously. No. There's no hurry. The Holy Ant sect has captured my people. I also want to capture some of their people. Otherwise, I will be at a disadvantage. Ningfan's eyes flashed with cold light. He was not a person who liked to be chased and bullied by others. Venerable Eagle Yang and the corpse slave king were not easy to deal with. However, Huahua and Kubixiong were different. Wait. Don't be impulsive. Old ancestor Leize's expression changed drastically when he heard Ningfan's words. He wanted to stop Ningfan, but it was already too late. Ningfan's body swayed, and he had already rushed out of the tornado's force. He flew towards Huahua and Kubixiong with immense baleful chi. What kind of baleful chi was that? It was a baleful chi that could even kill a quasi-saint. All of a sudden, the expressions of Huahua and Kubixiong, who were initially full of confidence, changed drastically. The magic power chi of 14,800 tribulations. It was a baleful chi that could even kill a quasi-saint. The 3 blood-red words above his head further increased Ningfan's ferocious aura. Ningfan's aura force was too terrifying. It was not something that newly advanced quasi-saints or integration stage quasi-saints like them could withstand. In terms of devil nature alone, it was several times scarier than cultivators who did not cultivate the devil path like old ancestor Lei Zhe. However, Hua Hua and Ku Bixiong firmly believed that even if they were not as strong as the other party in a battle between two quasi-saints, it was impossible for them to be killed instantly. Even a weakling like a silver-armored quasi-saint could fight against Ning Fan for an hour. They just needed to buy some time for Venerable Eagle Yang to catch up to them with the corpse slave king. Then, they would be able to overwhelm Ning Fan with numbers. Stinky brat. I didn't get to fight you last time. This time, let's have a good fight. Ku Bixiong roared. He turned into a ray of light and dashed towards Ning Fan. Unfortunately, before he could get close to Ning Fan, he was sent flying by a giant fist shadow that came from the void. Then the undying soul-sucking treant walked out from the void with a pair of merciless eyes. Behind him were the undying Black Qilin and the undying myriad Saint Dragon King. This brat actually secretly summoned the ghost flower of the netherworld in the void the moment his enemies appeared. What a terrifying scheme. Did he plan to fight against these two from the very beginning? Old ancestor Lei Zhe was speechless. Everything happened in the blink of an eye. Ku Bixiong was sent flying and entangled by the undying ghost soldier that Ning Fan secretly summoned, while Ning Fan himself instantly rushed to Hua Hua's side. Seeing this scene, old ancestor Lei Zhe did not dare to be careless anymore. His body flashed and he wanted to help Ning Fan. Not good. This brat is too careless. The close-range ant poison of the sacred ant sex Empress Hua Hua is extremely terrifying. It would be fine if he attacks her from a distance. However, if he fights her in close combat, he will definitely suffer a great loss. However, he could not help Ning Fan at all. Even though revered Eagle Yang had yet to arrive at Ning Fan's location from afar, he had already summoned a ray of silver light that entangled old ancestor Lei Zhe's legs. That ray of silver light was revered Eagle Yang's natal magic treasure, immortal binding silk. After being entangled by the silk, even with old ancestor Lei Zhe's strength, he could not break free from it within a short period of time. He could only watch Ning Fan and Hua Hua fighting in close combat. Bastard Eagle Yang, you're courting death. Old ancestor Lei Zhe was enraged. He could not allow anything to happen to Ning Fan. He could not. It's not certain who will die. Old man Lei Zhe, you're the one who deserves to die. Revered Eagle Yang sneered. Dong dong dong, the corpse slave king carried revered Eagle Yang on its back, running wildly on the flaming land with its massive feet. Each of its steps would leave a huge footprint that was over 100,000 zhang on the flaming land, causing the earth to shake and the mountains to shake. With the corpse slave king's full speed, he would be able to catch up to Ning Fan and the others in just 30 breaths of time. At that time, revered Eagle Yang and the corpse slave king would join in the operation to besiege Ning Fan. However, would the sinner Ning Fan be able to stay conscious for 30 breaths of time under Her Highness Hua Hua's deadly poison? I'm afraid he would be captured by Her Highness Hua Hua in just a few breaths. This young man doesn't know Her Highness Hua Hua's background. Choosing to engage in close combat is the same as seeking death. Revered Eagle Yang said disdainfully. As expected, Hua Hua had just exchanged 2 punches with Ning Fan, and she had already used her trump card. 5 Poison's Immortal Transformation Barrier. All of a sudden, the poison power inside Hua Hua's body surged violently. It turned into a light barrier that was 1,000 zhang wide, and covered her entire body. Ning Fan, who chose to engage in close combat with Hua Hua, was naturally enveloped by the light barrier as well. However, his expression remained the same as usual, as if he was treating the surging poison power as nothing. The enemy's poison power seemed to be very powerful. Its effect was not to kill the enemy with poison, but to paralyze them instead. It was a type of paralyzing poison. Its poison power was extremely terrifying. Just a trace of it was enough to paralyze an immortal emperor. If one falls into the immortal transformation barrier, and suffers the attacks of hundreds or thousands of traces of poison power, even someone as strong as a quasi-saint realm expert might be paralyzed by Hua Hua's attack and be captured by her. Unfortunately, Ning Fan was not an ordinary person. His poison resistance was extremely terrifying. Unless he was a top-notch poison cultivator among the first-level quasi-saints, no one could poison him at all. Hua. She was just a newbie in the Tao of Poison who had just advanced to the quasi-saint realm not long ago. If she wants to poison him, she would need to cultivate diligently for tens of millions of years. Impossible. You have already entered the range of my 5 poisons, immortal transformation barrier. Why are you unscathed? This is impossible. Hua's beautiful face turned pale with fright. One should know that even a quasi-saint realm expert with 13 to 14,000 tribulation magic power would lose a layer of skin after entering the range of her immortal transformation barrier. In order to ignore her poison power, just having a strong magic power was not enough. One must have a deep understanding of the Tao of Poison. Obviously, Ning Fan's mastery of the Tao of Poison was not any weaker than hers. That was also the reason why the poison power she was so proud of was extremely ineffective against him. Is this your trump card? If this is all you have, then everything can end here. You are the one who is careless. Ning Fan said mercilessly. The cross-shaped halos suddenly activated. It was not that he had entered Hua's range because he was careless. Those who dared to fight him in close combat were the ones who were truly careless. Each of the members of the foreign races on the border river had talismans to protect themselves. Thus, they were not afraid of the freezing effect of the cross-shaped halos. However, that was only possible after Ning Fan's cross-shaped halos became famous. His infamy in the Northern Heaven had yet to spread. The people of the Northern Heaven also did not know that there was such an illegal technique like the cross-shaped halos in this world. When Ning Fan activated the cross-shaped halos and Hua was immobilized by the heaven sealing technique that was cast hundreds or thousands of times in a single breath, she was shocked. She was not afraid of the imitation reincarnation technique. However, it was her first time encountering a technique with such a high frequency. She could not move a single inch under such a technique at all. Fortunately, she also had a trump card in her hand. It just needed 3 breaths of time to activate. As long as she uses her trump card, she could ignore the freezing effect and fly away from the range of the cross-shaped halos. Hua knew that with her quasi-saint realm cultivation base, she would not lose her life even if she stood still and endured Ning Fan's attacks for 3 breaths. A quasi-saint realm expert was just that tough. After 3 breaths of time, she could change her position and fight him again. This cross-shaped halos of yours is really heaven-defying. It actually gives me the feeling of a saint ring. It's too strange. This time, I was indeed careless. However, if you think that a dignified quasi-saint realm expert would fall for such a petty trick, then you are gravely mistaken. Ancestral force activate. Haha. My ancestral force has already been activated. Your doomsday is coming. How dare an ant like you go against my sacred ant sect? I will let you know the price of offending the sacred ant sect. All of a sudden, Hua's aura force changed. Her eyes were filled with ferocity. It was as if some kind of terrifying qi was awakening within her body under the activation of her magic power. Ning Fan's expression changed slightly. That qi gave him a dangerous feeling. If he really gives Hua a few breaths of time to activate that item, he might really be at a disadvantage. However, even if Hua really stands still and lets him kill her, it would be impossible for him to kill a quasi-saint realm expert within a few breaths. How could a quasi-saint realm expert be so easy to kill? The silver-armored quasi-saint realm expert was completely suppressed by him, and he even wasted 1 hour to kill him. In fact, it took him 1 hour to deplete the qi and blood of the silver-armored quasi-saint realm expert. Ning Fan did not use the cross-shaped halo's ability to attack Hua. It would be useless. Even if he focused all his attacks, he would not be able to kill a quasi-saint realm expert within a short period of time. All of Ning Fan's normal methods would not be able to kill Hua within a certain period of time and prevent her from escaping from the cross-shaped halos. Since that was the case, he would just have to use some unusual methods. Ning Fan used a method that was faster, simpler and more effective than any other abilities. He gently tapped Hua's lips with his finger. Shut up. You're too noisy. A massive power of bewitching technique flowed into Hua's body through her lips. Her magic power was in a mess. Once her magic power was in a mess, She could no longer mobilize her magic power to activate her ancestral force. The activation of her ancestral force failed. She did not have any other methods to break free from the cross-shaped halos that could freeze her body thousands of times in a single breath. She was trapped inside the cross-shaped halos like an idiot. Even though her blood and chi of a quasi-saint realm expert was extremely strong, and she would not be killed by Ning Fan within a short period of time, Ning Fan did not use any methods to kill her. Instead, he used an extremely despicable and shameless bewitching technique. She was a quasi-saint realm expert. She would not fall just because she was struck by the bewitching technique. However, under the control of the cross-shaped halos, she could not evade it and suffered a great loss. The magic power in her body wanted to resist the power of the bewitching technique. However, in the end, it was still suppressed and sealed by the power of Ning Fan's bewitching technique. 10 breaths. In just 10 breaths, Ning Fan had sealed all of Huahua's magic power inside the cross-shaped halos. In just 10 breaths, he had captured a female quasi-saint realm expert alive. This was his first time capturing a quasi-saint realm human cauldron. If he plucked her, Ning Fan did not dare to imagine how much his magic power would increase. Since the Holy Ant sect insisted on hunting him down, they should not blame him for being ruthless. I don't care if you're a princess or a deposed emperor. None of you can escape. Congratulations on becoming the first furnace that I caught after coming to the northern heavens. Your name is Huahua, right? That's a nice name. Under Huahua's complicated eyes, which were filled with shame, anger, shock and regret, Ning Fan even sealed her ability to speak. Then he directly threw her into the profound Yin world and locked her up in the Palace of Repentance. A quasi-saint was not far from becoming a saint. Their every word and action was a law. Sealing Jianhua's ability to speak was also to prevent this woman from using any means to protect herself and escape. No, impossible. At this moment, be it old ancestor Leijia, revered Eagle Yang or Ke Bixiong, all of them were shocked by Ning Fan's action of capturing a quasi-sage realm expert alive within 10 breaths. Even if Huahua was a new quasi-sage, she shouldn't have been captured within 10 breaths. How did Ning Fan do it? Because of the cross-shaped halos, they could not see the details. All they saw was Ning Fan pointing his finger, and Huahua immediately surrendered. He had captured a quasi-sage with a single finger. Could it be that this lad was actually an ancient great cultivator? Attention everyone. The perpetrator's cultivation had been severely underestimated. He was suspected to be an ancient great cultivator. Don't be left alone. Don't be left alone no matter what. Especially, don't let the few other candidates of the Ant Queen be left alone. Her Highness Huahua. She was captured alive by the enemy. She only managed to hold on for 10 breaths when the enemy was injured. Revered Eagle Yang's voice trembled as he spread the news to every corner of the 12th floor of the Earth Abyss. All of a sudden, the expressions of the experts of the light ants who were initially rushing to kill Ning Fan changed drastically. They were filled with fear. Even the great priestess Yin Mother, the strongest expert of the light ant clan, turned pale with fright when she heard the news. An ancient great cultivator. How could he possibly be an ancient great cultivator? Once my heavens will red name technique is planted, I can roughly sense the opponent's cultivation base. The opponent's magic power is definitely only around 15,000 tribulations. How could he possibly be an ancient great cultivator? Could it be that he has a concealment technique that can deceive the heavens will? Yin Yang would never lie. I can sense that Huahua's chi has indeed disappeared from the 12th floor. It seems like she was really captured by the opponent in a single move. Even a top expert among second-level quasi-saints would not be able to capture a quasi-sage realm expert in a single move. Is the opponent really an ancient great cultivator? There is no such person among the ancient great cultivators of the four heavens. Who is he? Why did he choose to appear at this time? Could it be that he is here for the battle of the Queen Ant? What kind of deep grudge does he have against my sacred ant sect? Why did he come here to ruin our plans? No one knew that Ning Fan had used a small bewitching technique to get rid of Huahua. This also caused the information to seriously deviate from the truth. The entire light ant clan, from Yin Mother to the ordinary light ants, were in a state of panic. A man's name is like a tree's shadow. If an ancient great cultivator really comes to destroy the sacred ant sect, none of the light ants would dare to ignore such a threat. At this moment, the words "kill without mercy" above Ning Fan's head had become a joke. Who would dare to chase after Ning Fan alone? Instead, they would have to worry about being caught by Ning Fan alone and being killed one by one. Corpse Slave King, you will guard the rear. I will leave first. I must go. Revered Eagle Yang was extremely immoral. He threw the Corpse Slave King away, wanting to use its power to stop Ning Fan, who was an ancient great cultivator. Meanwhile, he himself fled 1,000 li away, trying to gather a few quasi-saints and then fuse them together to fight against Ning Fan. It was a wrong judgment. Because of his wrong judgment, the Light Ant clan's pursuit of Ning Fan had a fundamental change. Genius website. Apex mobile version. Chapter 1198. Ning Fan did not expect that his action of capturing a quasi-saint would actually scare Venerable Yin Yang away. Only the Corpse Slave King was chasing after him. Venerable Yin Yang was nowhere to be found. Everyone could see that he had already escaped from this place. Venerable Yin Yang was not the only one who was afraid of Ning Fan. Even further away, those experts of the Light Ant clan who originally wanted to chase after Ning Fan chose to turn around and flee. They no longer had the courage to continue chasing after Ning Fan. Ning Fan could clearly feel that the countless killing intents that locked onto him were getting further and further away from him. The Light Ant clan was wrong. They had overestimated Ning Fan's strength. They mistakenly thought that Ning Fan was an ancient great cultivator who could destroy heaven and earth. They were scared. Kobixiong, I have something to do at the last minute. I'll leave first. You and the Corpse Slave King work together and stop this red-named great cultivator. Don't let him chase after me. This is an order. Far away from them, Venerable Yin Yang hurriedly transmitted his voice to Kobixiong while escaping. Perhaps it was because Venerable Yin Yang was too nervous. His tone of voice was a little shaky. He did not use the secret sound transmission at all. Instead, his voice was so loud that even Ning Fan could hear it. His expression instantly turned extremely strange. A great cultivator? That Venerable Yin Yang actually thought that I was an ancient great cultivator. What kind of joke is this? I'm not your subordinate. I'm loyal to the royal family. Why should I sacrifice myself to buy time for your tribe to escape? After receiving Venerable Yin Yang's voice transmission, Kobixiong was so angry that he scolded him. Of course, he was scolding Venerable Yin Yang for being shameless. This man is simply a typical example of a Taoist who would rather sacrifice his friends than himself. When he saw that the situation was not right, he actually abandoned his companions and ran away. What's more, he actually asked his companions to cover for him. Kobixiong certainly would not sacrifice himself to buy time for others to escape. He was not a Corpse Slave King with low spiritual intelligence. He also wanted to escape. He was also shocked by Ning Fan's action of capturing a quasi-saint in 10 breaths. Kobixiong did not dare to imagine how high Ning Fan's cultivation base was to be able to capture a quasi-saint alive in just 10 breaths. That's right. That old man Yin Yang was right. This man is an ancient great cultivator. This was because even a second-stage quasi-sage would not be able to capture a quasi-sage within 10 breaths. As soon as this thought crossed his mind, Kobixiong's fear towards Ning Fan immediately multiplied by countless times. Inwardly, he complained incessantly. He hated himself for being hot-headed and following the princess to snatch Ning Fan's achievement. What did the ancient great cultivators of the Age of Chaos mean? It meant that he was invincible in the world. It meant that they were already standing at the peak of the Age of Chaos. Even Her Highness Huahua could only last for 10 breaths of time against Ning Fan. How many breaths of time could he, a quasi-saint who temporarily advanced to the immortal realm through fusion, last? 5 breaths? 3 breaths? Or was it only 1 breath? Or perhaps he could not even withstand a single attack from Ning Fan. Ant-Man Immortal Escape Technique. Kobixiong used the Holy Ant Sect's signature escape technique. Without any movement, he instantly jumped out of the encirclement of the soul-absorbing tree and the other indestructible ghost soldiers. With a leap, he flew a distance of several continents. It's this kind of escape technique again. How troublesome, Ning Fan frowned. He wanted to chase after Ke Bixiong, but the corpse slave king who arrived late stopped him. This corpse slave king is so powerful. It opened its mouth and breathed out a monstrous amount of corpse chi which easily shrouded several continents around it, sealing the heaven and earth with its corpse chi. As a result, all of Ning Fan's traveling lights were sealed. He wanted to chase after Ke Bixiong, but he could not do anything. He could only watch Ke Bixiong run away. He summoned the sea reversing sword and tried to cut through the corpse chi that sealed the heaven and earth. However, he discovered that although the corpse chi seemed to be just a gas that filled the sky, when he cut it with his sword, it produced the sound of metal colliding with jade. It was extremely strange. When the sea reversing sword cut through the invisible corpse chi, its power was directly absorbed by the corpse chi. It could not break through the corpse chi at all. This is the corpse slave king's annihilation formation. Once this formation is activated, even an ancient great cultivator won't be able to break through it, let alone you and me. There are only two ways to get out of this formation. One is for the corpse slave king to remove the formation on its own accord. The other is to kill this corpse slave king from the inside of the formation. Little friend, don't tell me you're really an ancient great cultivator? Old ancestor Lei Zhe broke free from the restraints of the binding immortal silk and flew to Ning Fan's side. After explaining the corpse slave king's abilities, he carefully looked at Ning Fan. If Ning Fan was really an ancient great cultivator, he would probably have to address himself as a junior when he interacted with Ning Fan again. No, Ning Fan did not pretend to be an ancient great cultivator. Now that they were in a battlefield, even if he wanted to pretend to be an ancient great cultivator, he would give himself away in the battle against the corpse slave king. It was impossible for him to crush this corpse slave king like how he crushed Huahua. You're really not? Then how did you capture a quasi-saint in 10 breaths? Old ancestor Lei Zhe did not seem to believe Ning Fan's words. Before Ning Fan could answer, the corpse slave king's iron fist had already landed on him. Oh my god. This corpse slave king's body is so huge. Its fist is actually bigger than a cultivation planet. How is this a fist smashing down? This was a falling star. Seeing this, old ancestor Lei Zhe no longer had the mood to get to the bottom of it. His expression changed greatly. Regardless of how you captured the quasi-saint, let's join hands and quickly kill this corpse slave king. Before that old Manning Yang escaped, he must have given this corpse slave king a death order. If we don't kill this fiend, both of us can forget about leaving this barrier alive. It was the wind count pouch. While old ancestor Lei Zhe was talking, his movements were not slow at all. He even took out his wind count pouch. This wind count pouch was really powerful. It could capture people across domains, and it could also kill people with ease. As soon as the pouch opened, silver wind runes gushed out, turning into a silver hurricane that collided with the corpse slave king's gigantic fist. Boom! The corpse slave king gained the upper hand in this exchange of blows. The corpse slave king's fist was blocked by the hurricane, but it was not injured at all. On the other hand, the hurricane created by old ancestor Lei Zhe was shattered into billions of wind runes by the corpse slave king's punch. Then, the wind runes began to crumble in large batches. In just one exchange, half of the runes were gone. Seeing this, Ning Fan's expression changed slightly. He now had a clear understanding of this corpse slave king's strength. This corpse slave king was much stronger than old ancestor Lei Zhe. It was a tricky enemy. The most troublesome thing about it was that it could continue to absorb other small corpse slaves to fuse with itself and become stronger. If Ning Fan and old ancestor Lei Zhe are really surrounded by the 4 quasi-saints including the corpse slave king, they would definitely end up in a miserable state. Fortunately, Ning Fan had already captured one of the 4 quasi-saints and scared away the other 2. The corpse slave king was obviously not strong enough to hold the fort alone. Little friend, I will attack the corpse slave king from the left. You and your indestructible ghost soldiers will attack from the right. This corpse slave king is strong, but it is not without weaknesses. Its defense against physical techniques is extremely heaven-defying, but it is vulnerable to magic attacks. It is a corpse slave that was born in the land of extreme fire. Its body possesses the fire element. If you attack it with the water element, it will be very effective. As he spoke, old ancestor Lei Zhe had already attacked the corpse slave king from the left. The corpse slave king's left fist was blocked by old ancestor Lei Zhe again. Roar! The corpse slave king was enraged. Its left fist was blocked by old ancestor Lei Zhe again and again. In its fury, it also swung its right fist, planning to smash old ancestor Lei Zhe to death with both fists. Since Ningfan had already assigned the right path to attack, he naturally would not miss the corpse slave king's right fist attack to old ancestor Lei Zhe. Relying on the spiritual connection, he gave the 3 indestructible ghost soldiers an order. Upon receiving the order, they immediately stood in front of the corpse slave king's right fist. Indestructible soul-absorbing tree. Indestructible black qilin. Indestructible thousand holiness dragon king. The ones who blocked the corpse slave king's right fist were a quasi-saint and 2 half-saints. In Ningfan's opinion, no matter how strong the corpse slave king was, it should be able to block that punch. However, he was wrong. The corpse slave king's physical strength was too terrifying. Except for the soul-absorbing tree, the black qilin and thousand holiness dragon king were all blown up by the corpse slave king's punch. If the black qilin and thousand holiness dragon king didn't have undying bodies, the corpse slave king's punch could have killed them directly. At this moment, the power of the indestructible ghost soldiers was displayed. Even though their bodies were blown up by the corpse slave king, the black qilin and thousand holiness dragon king reformed their bodies in the blink of an eye. Once again, they launched a series of attacks against the corpse slave king's right fist. The corpse slave king was enraged. Its spiritual intelligence was too low. It could not understand what was happening in front of it. The 2 half-saints that it had killed actually came back to life again and again in front of it. It was not happy. It was determined to smash these indestructible ghost soldiers into a pulp. Unfortunately, no matter how many times it killed the black qilin and thousand holiness dragon king, they could still regenerate rapidly under the influence of the underworld ghost flower. If a person with a normal brain saw how difficult it was to deal with the indestructible ghost soldiers, they would certainly understand that the right way to deal with them was to kill Ningfan, who was controlling them. However, the corpse slave king did not think of this. Thus, it became a tragedy. Old ancestor Lei Zhe's frenzied attacks from the left, and the 3 indestructible ghost soldiers from the right. Even without Ningfan's attack, the corpse slave king was already at a disadvantage. It began to be suppressed by 1 man and 3 ghosts. However, what shocked Ningfan the most was that even though Patriarch Leijia and the others were suppressing the corpse demon king, and attacking its weak points with all kinds of water element techniques, the rate at which its qi and blood were being depleted could still be described as slow. It was impossible for the corpse slave king to not be injured when it was besieged by 2 half-saints and 2 half-saints. However, its qi and blood were too strong. No matter how serious the damage was, it would not have any obvious effect on its body. Ningfan estimated the corpse slave king's qi and blood. The more he calculated, the more shocked he became. Even if this corpse slave king stood still and let old ancestor Lei Zhe and the others attack it, the latter would need 10 days and 9 nights to kill it. The problem was, would the corpse slave king stand still and let you attack it? Wouldn't it know how to defend itself? Wouldn't the qi and blood it lost slowly recover as time passed? After a round of battle, old ancestor Lei Zhe also estimated the corpse slave king's massive qi and blood. His face turned green. How am I supposed to fight it? The corpse slave king's qi and blood recovery speed was almost as fast as the rate at which it was injured. Even though he knew a lot about the corpse slave king of the Ant clan, he had never fought it personally before. This was his first time facing a corpse slave king head-on. In the past, he had only heard about how powerful the corpse slave king was. Today, he found out that it was not just powerful but also a monster. In the age of chaos, there were very few people who could be called monsters. This corpse slave king was definitely one of them. There was no end to the corpse slave king's qi and blood, but its magic power was limited. The corpse slave king's weakness was its magic attacks. Ningfan had to maintain a certain speed of magic attacks to continuously cause damage to the corpse slave king. The consumption of his magic power was huge. At this rate, he could only fight the corpse slave king for 3 days at most. After that, his magic power would be depleted. Can he kill the corpse slave king within 3 days? Can he escape from the corpse slave king's barrier within 3 days? Will the people of the Ant clan realize that Ning Fan is not an ancient great cultivator, and return to besiege him again? If the battle drags on for too long, they will definitely realize that Ning Fan is not an ancient great cultivator. It is impossible for an ancient great cultivator to be trapped to death by a mere corpse slave king. I can kill the corpse slave king and walk out of the barrier. If my magic power is depleted and I still can't kill this corpse slave king, I will use my last resort. No matter what, I must send little friend Ning out of this place. I can die, but the incense of the Yin Yang ritual cannot be severed. Old ancestor Leisha made up his mind. The last resort that he was thinking of was to detonate the primordial spirit of the quasi-saint. The self-destruction of a quasi-saint's primordial spirit was extremely terrifying. Even ancient great cultivators would not dare to get involved in it recklessly. If old ancestor Leisha detonated his primordial spirit, even if he could not kill the corpse slave king, he could at least create a crack in the annihilation barrier, creating a path for Ning Fan to escape. He was not doing all this for Ning Fan, who was just a stranger he met by chance. Instead, he was doing all this for the mission of the Yin Yang sect's inheritance. This had nothing to do with whether he was weak or not. This was a belief that he had to carry out no matter what. Besides, it was not certain that a quasi-saint would die from self-destruction. They were already very close to the saint realm. Even if those experts among the quasi-saints self-destructed their primordial spirits, they still had a chance to survive. Of course, the loss of their cultivation base was definitely huge. Of course, Ning Fan did not know that old ancestor Leisha had already lost his confidence after being frightened by the corpse slave king's powerful qi and blood. He even had the thought of risking his life to protect himself. If he knew about this, he might be a little touched. Unfortunately, he did not know. He did not participate in the siege of the corpse slave king. Instead, he was observing it. The soul-absorbing tree is good at wood element attacks. The black qilin is good at fire element attacks. The Wansheng Dragon King is good at water element attacks. However, his attack power is too weak. It's not enough to cause significant damage to the corpse slave king. Senior Leisha is a titled wind cultivator. Even though he also knows water element attacks, they aren't strong enough. This is also why he often can't cause effective damage to the corpse slave king. This corpse slave king is actually summoning its little corpse slaves again. Ning Fan's face turned gloomy. The corpse slave king was unwilling to be at a disadvantage. It let out a series of roars, summoning all the little corpse slaves on the 12th floor. Only the Ant clan was afraid of Ning Fan, who was an ancient great cultivator. However, the corpse slaves were not. They did not have brains. They only knew how to carry out the orders of the Ant clan and fight to the death. The little corpse slaves that were summoned fused with the corpse slave king's body one after another, causing its aura force to surge again. It was still growing stronger. It could still grow stronger. As long as it could absorb the power of the little corpse slaves endlessly, it would be invincible. The current corpse slave king was already strong enough to make old ancestor Leisha feel despair. If it becomes even stronger, old ancestor Leisha panicked. Just as he was about to remind Ning Fan to kill the little corpse slaves that came to his aid, Ning Fan had already taken action. It was impossible for him to just stand aside and watch the battle. He had already observed enough. He knew very well that it was impossible for old ancestor Leisha and the 3 indestructible ghost soldiers to kill this corpse slave king no matter what. This corpse slave king was already terrifyingly strong. He would not allow it to continue absorbing the little corpse slaves to grow stronger. Chi. Ning Fan swung the sea-reversing sword continuously. One corpse slave after another was cut into pieces by Ning Fan. However, there were still many corpse slaves that managed to avoid Ning Fan's attacks and forcibly fused with the corpse slave king's body. The corpse slaves that were summoned by the corpse slave king were not only immortal venerables, but also many first-step corpse slaves with weak cultivation bases. There were just too many corpse slaves. They were endless and there were more than 1 million of them. If all of them fuse with the corpse slave king's body, Ning Fan would not have full confidence to kill it. There are too many of them that slip through the net. I need to use an attack that has a wider range. I'm afraid the corpse slave king is using water element attacks. Unfortunately, water element attacks are exactly what I'm good at. Summon Boundless Ocean. Ning Fan placed the formation marks on the ground of flames. All of a sudden, the ground of flames was drowned by an ocean that appeared out of nowhere. The ocean water was light red like blood. It came from the true world and was called Boundless. As soon as the ocean appeared, the power of Ning Fan's water element attacks within its range increased tremendously. This young man can actually summon such a large ocean in a place without water. Old ancestor Leisha was astounded. Water drowning bottle appear. All of a sudden, the sky of flames was replaced by the Inai Sea. The sky turned into an upside-down ocean. Then, the waves of the boundless ocean on the ground soared into the sky while the waves of the Inai Sea in the sky poured down. The raging waves finally converged and drowned everything within the barrier. This was the strongest water element attack that Ning Fan could use. It was the strongest water attack that he created by fusing the water of the boundless ocean and the Inai Sea. The boundless ocean. This time, Ning Fan used his strongest magic power without any hesitation. The power of the attack was so strong that even old ancestor Leisha's expression changed greatly. This young man actually used such an indiscriminate attack on such a large scale. Is he trying to kill me as well? Of course, Ning Fan would not attack old ancestor Leisha together with him. Even though the boundless ocean would attack all living beings indiscriminately, there was one place that would not be attacked. That was the water drowning bottle. I'll have to trouble you, senior. Please take shelter in this junior's bottle. My magic power has become stronger again. The power of this attack is also stronger than before. If that's the case, I won't dare to stay in the outside world and endure the waves. Ning Fan brought old ancestor Leisha and hid inside the bottle world of the realm drowned water bottle. As for the bottle itself, it was floating and sinking in the waves. Ning Fan did not keep the 3 indestructible ghost soldiers into the bottle world. After all, they would not die. Following Ning Fan's order, they continued to attack the corpse slave king while enduring the waves. The corpse slave king was in trouble. None of the little corpse slaves that he summoned was at the immortal emperor realm. Facing the indiscriminate attack of the boundless ocean, no matter how many of them come, they would all die. In just a few breaths' time, all the little corpse slaves were killed by the waves. The number of little corpse slaves that died exceeded 3 million. This included more than 400 immortal venerable realm corpses. They were all the little corpse slaves of the Light Ant clan. Unfortunately, they were summoned to this place by the corpse slave king. Unfortunately, they were all killed by Ning Fan in one fell swoop. The corpse slave king himself was even more pitiful. He was a dried corpse and he had the fire element. What he feared the most was water. Such a large-scale water element attack was enough to make him instinctively feel afraid. Of course, even though the boundless ocean was powerful, he could not kill an existence like the corpse slave king instantly. With his massive chi and blood, even if he withstood the boundless ocean's attack, he would still be alive for 2 hours. If he was smarter, he could remove the barrier at any time and escape from the range of the waves. However, he was stubborn. Venerable Yin Yang ordered him to entangle Ning Fan and not allow him to escape. Thus, he did not dare to escape. Even if he died here, he would not dare to escape. This was also the reason why the quasi-saints of the Light Ant clan would usually send a quasi-saint to accompany the corpse slave king. It could not be helped. The corpse slave king was too stupid. He needed someone to guide him and tell him to use different methods to deal with different enemies. If Venerable Yin Yang did not escape, the corpse slave king would definitely beat Ning Fan and his group to a pulp. Unfortunately, there were no ifs. Venerable Yin Yang made a wrong decision. The corpse slave king had no choice but to bear Ning Fan's anger alone. He could not see through the weakness of the underworld ghost flower. He knew that he was no match for the boundless ocean, but he did not dare to run away. His battle intent did not diminish. He roared furiously in the waves, pushing back the 3 indestructible ghost soldiers that were besieging him time and time again. However, no matter what, he could not kill those 3 annoying indestructible ghost soldiers. Even the boundless ocean could not drown those 3 indestructible ghost soldiers. The underworld ghost flower was simply one of the greatest evil spirits in the world. The indestructible ghost soldiers that it summoned seemed to be indestructible and indestructible. Inside the waves, the underworld ghost flower bloomed beautifully as usual. Moreover, after absorbing the life force of more than 3 million little corpse slaves, it had accumulated a great amount of power. I can create indestructible ghost soldiers again. This is a great opportunity. As long as Ning Fan can kill the corpse slave king here, he would have a certain chance of creating an indestructible ghost soldier. If he can really do that, not only would he have another quasi-saint fighter under his command, but this time, the quasi-saint would not be a weak quasi-saint like the soul-absorbing tree. Instead, it would be an existence that was stronger than old ancestor Leisha. World Drowning Bottle. Could this be the famous treasure of the great Emperor Drowning? It's one of the top 5 magic treasures in the illusory world. The World Drowning Bottle? With old ancestor Leisha's means, he could still vaguely sense the changes in the outside world even if he was hiding inside the bottle. He was terrified by the power of the World Drowning Bottle. He had heard about the various battle achievements of the great Emperor Drowning Bottle, and the ancient legend of the World Drowning Bottle. Now that he had witnessed the power of the World Drowning Bottle with his own eyes, he felt that the description of the power of the World Drowning Bottle in the legends was too low. The real World Drowning Bottle seemed to be much stronger and more powerful than the legends. Even the corpse slave king, who was a monster of chi and blood, had suffered considerable damage from the attack of the World Drowning Bottle. Of course, old ancestor Leisha did not know that Ning Fan's attack was not just a simple World Drowning Bottle. Instead, it was a combination of the dual water attacks of the Enichan Sea and the boundless ocean. Naturally, its power was much stronger than the legends. Ning Fan just answered casually. At this moment, all of his attention was focused on controlling the waves in the outside world. The boundless reverse ocean could not kill the corpse slave king instantly. As a result, Ning Fan had no choice but to be prepared to continue fighting against the corpse slave king. Controlling the boundless reverse ocean for a long time was extremely taxing on one's mental state. Fortunately, Ning Fan's mental state was much stronger than before. Otherwise, he would not be able to maintain the boundless reverse ocean for too long. The corpse slave king was submerged in the waves. Under Ning Fan's control, countless undercurrents formed a whirlpool, trying to shred the corpse slave king into pieces. However, the corpse slave king's chi and blood was too strong. Even though each wave could cause a lot of damage to him, the speed of his chi and blood was still not fast. It could only be said that it was not slow. Not enough. Not enough. Not enough. At this rate, Ning Fan would need to maintain the boundless reverse ocean for more than 2 hours before he could kill the corpse slave king. Putting aside the fact that his mental state could not maintain the attacks of the waves for that long, just the fact that he, a dignified, ancient great cultivator, could not kill the corpse slave king in 2 hours would certainly arouse the suspicion of the Ant clan alone. Just as Ning Fan expected. Currently, the members of the Ant clan had already begun to doubt Ning Fan's identity as a great cultivator. Ning Fan's action of capturing a quasi-saint alive in 10 breaths' time was too frightening. Such a domineering action was completely the style of a great cultivator in ancient times. That was why Venerable Yin Yang had underestimated Ning Fan's strength. However, it did not mean that all the quasi-saints of the Ant clan were fools. Ning Fan was being hunted by the Ant clan with a red name. All the experts of the Ant clan could sense Ning Fan's situation through a trace of connection. It was fine that Ning Fan was just observing the battle, and did not attack the corpse slave king. It was not strange that old ancestor Leisha and a few indestructible ghost soldiers could not kill the corpse slave king. However, even though Ning Fan clearly took action, he still could not kill the corpse slave king in a short period of time. This made the quasi-saints of the Ant clan doubt Ning Fan's identity as a great cultivator. Yes, the offensive power of Ning Fan's boundless reverse ocean was quite good. Even ordinary quasi-saints would have to avoid it. However, it seemed to be still far from the power of the magic techniques of a great cultivator in ancient times. Could it be that he isn't a great cultivator in ancient times? My red name perception of heaven's will isn't wrong? In the royal city of the Ant clan, the great priestess Enmu frowned. No. The situation isn't right. After I left the corpse slave king behind, I was already prepared that the corpse slave king would be crushed. However, that's not the case at all. Even though the corpse slave king couldn't win against that young man's water attack, it was only because their attributes were incompatible. Judging from the power of the technique, if that young man relied on his own strength, he wouldn't be able to defeat the corpse slave king at all. Why is that? Could it be? Several hundred continents away, Venerable Yin Yang stopped running away. His expression turned slightly ugly. Could it be that Ning Fan isn't a great cultivator in ancient times at all? Could it be that he had underestimated Ning Fan's strength? Could it be that all the information he sent back to the great priestess was wrong? Could it be that the entire Ant clan was scared witless by a young man who was even weaker than the corpse slave king? What a great humiliation! What a great humiliation! If all of this is true, I, Yin Yang, will become the biggest laughingstock of the Ant clan for being scared away by a young man. No. Not only me, the entire Ant clan and the Holy Ant sect will lose all face. Zengda Venerable Yin Yang's eyes were burning with anger. He was no longer running away. He wanted to return to where he came from and join hands with the corpse slave king to kill Ning Fan and wash away the humiliation. Not only Venerable Yin Yang, but countless other Ant clan members also locked their killing intent on Ning Fan. They could not get rid of it even if they were separated by the bottle world. This is troublesome. The members of the Ant clan are heading back to this place. Their killing intent is approaching again. Ning Fan said with an ugly expression. What? Could it be that you really aren't a great cultivator in ancient times? Could it be that they have already found out about this? Old ancestor Leija's expression changed greatly. They could not even kill a single corpse slave king. If Venerable Yin Yang returns and more quasi-saints of the Ant clan come to their aid, they would definitely die. I already said that I'm not a great cultivator in ancient times, but Senior didn't believe me. Ning Fan sighed gently. After that, his eyes suddenly turned sharp and frenzied. He would not give those experts of the Ant clan the time to return. If you make one wrong move, I will make sure that you make all the mistakes. It was you who gave me the chance to face the corpse slave king alone. If I don't kill this corpse slave king and try to subdue this undying ghost soldier, wouldn't it be a waste? Is the corpse slave king's water attack really the only weakness? Not necessarily. Doesn't it have another weakness? That's the weakness that all undead creatures have. The 5 Yin Yang swords. The mortal sword executes life. What it executes is the undead creatures. Of course, since the corpse slave king's chi and blood is so strong, even the mortal sword executioner might not be able to kill it in a short time. However, what if the mortal sword executioner is used together with the boundless sea force? Ever since Ning Fan mastered the 5 Yin Yang swords, this was the first time he had such a thought. It could also be said that it was a kind of epiphany. The 5 Yin Yang swords did not necessarily need to be used with a sword. As long as one comprehends the essence of the 5 Yin Yang swords, all the Daos in the world could be combined with the essence of the 5 Yin Yang swords and cause fatal damage to the enemy. Theoretically, the waves that drowned everything could also be combined with the sword principle of the 5 Yin Yang swords. Perhaps, the 5 Yin Yang swords was not just a sword technique from the beginning. Instead, it was a killing technique that was not limited to any weapon, any magic technique, or any form of attack. Ning Fan tried to integrate the essence of the 5 Yin Yang swords into the boundless reverse sea. All of a sudden, every drop of seawater had sword intent and turned into billions of droplets of water. Theoretically, it seemed to work. However, the actual situation seemed to be a little wrong. After integrating the essence of the 5 Yin Yang swords, the waves of the boundless reverse sea suddenly surged violently. It was like a drop of water being poured into boiling oil. Heaven and earth began to shake. Fellow Taoist Ning, what have you done? The waves outside seem to have become quite violent. Don't tell me that this sea is going to explode. What is going on? I have never heard of a water element divine ability that could cause a fire element explosion. I don't know why, but my heart is beating wildly and I can't control it. It's as if I have encountered a great danger. Old ancestor Leisha had a bad feeling. I've gone too far. I'm sorry for offending you. Senior, this junior will be responsible for all the injuries that you have suffered this time. Ning Fan's face was as pale as a sheet of paper. It seemed like he had overdrawn his magic power. Without knowing why, he suddenly apologized to old ancestor Leisha. What do you mean by that? Before old ancestor Leisha could understand what Ning Fan meant, the bottle world in front of him exploded into pieces at the next moment. The boundless reverse sea had exploded. Moreover, it was an explosion with a terrifying force that Ning Fan did not expect. Even Ning Fan and old ancestor Leisha, who were hiding in the bottle world, were not spared. They were dragged into the explosion. In the midst of the explosion, the miserable shriek of the corpse demon king was even louder than the explosion. His chi and blood rapidly weakened as the waves collapsed. It's fake. It's all fake. What ancient great cultivator. It's all dog shit. Watch how I chop off your dog head to vent my anger. Venerable Yin Yang flew into a rage out of humiliation. He returned to where Ning Fan was at full speed. He wanted to kill Ning Fan to vent his anger. He wanted to expose Ning Fan's fake identity as a great cultivator. He wanted to expose all of Ning Fan's disguises. It seems a little wrong to say that. Ning Fan didn't pretend to be an ancient great cultivator from the beginning. It was his own misunderstanding. All of his embarrassing actions were his own fault. Humph. Those details were fine no matter what. In short, he wanted to kill Ning Fan to vent his anger. Otherwise, he would not be able to answer to the great priest when he returns. How can a person who can't even defeat the corpse demon king be an ancient great cultivator? How dare he provoke my holy aunt's sect with such little strength? He's really courting death. Hiss. What's going on over there? Boom! It was the sound of waves collapsing in the distance. Buzzed out. It was temporary deafness and tinnitus. The sound of the explosion was too violent. Even with Venerable Yin Yang's cultivation base and the distance between them, which was more than 10 continents away, he still could not stop the ringing in his ears. Venerable Yin Yang's expression instantly changed. He was frightened once again. As a Light Ant Clan's quasi-sage, he could clearly sense that the corpse demon king's chi and blood were rapidly decreasing in the midst of the explosions. 95% chi and blood, 88% chi and blood, 63% chi and blood, 55% chi and blood, 42% chi and blood, 31% chi and blood, 20% chi and blood, 10% chi and blood. All of his chi and blood were gone. The corpse demon king only lasted for 9 breaths of time in that explosion and died. What kind of explosion was that? It actually killed the corpse demon king in just 9 breaths of time. Is that young man really not an ancient great cultivator? If he isn't, how could he kill an expert like the corpse demon king in just 9 breaths of time? I've been tricked. He pretended that he could not defeat the corpse demon king just now. It was all a lie. He wanted to trick me into coming back to kill me. Now that he saw that I was not far away from him, he stopped pretending and killed the corpse demon king directly. He captured the flower flame in 10 breaths of time, and killed the corpse demon king in 9 breaths of time. If this young man isn't an ancient great cultivator, who else would dare to call himself an ancient great cultivator? 11 continents. The distance between me and him is only 11 continents. Why did I turn around and come back? I'm simply the stupidest ant in the world. With the speed of an ancient great cultivator, he can catch up with me in an instant. I must escape. It's meaningless to die here. Only by merging with the other quasi-sage light ants can I fight against him. Venerable Yin Yang was scared out of his wits. He was scared away by Ning Fan again. He had misjudged the situation again. The only fortunate thing was that this time, Venerable Yin Yang was the only one who misjudged Ning Fan's strength. This time, the great priestess Yin Mother, who was in the Light Ant Imperial City, was very sure that Ning Fan was not an ancient great cultivator. Even though Ning Fan only had 9 breaths of time to kill the corpse demon king, that was just a fluke. This young man would not have such luck when facing any of the quasi-sage light ant race. Idiot! Idiot! Why did you run again? Quickly go and catch that red-named sinner. He was injured by the explosion that he created. This is the moment when he is at his weakest. Idiot. Idiot. An ancient great cultivator. How can this young man be an ancient great cultivator? Why would an ancient great cultivator go to such great lengths to kill a corpse demon king? He even got himself involved in the explosion and suffered severe injuries. Ingyang. Ingyang. Can you hear me? I'm talking to you. Why aren't you replying? Catch that young man. I order you to go back and catch him. Bastard. The great priestess Yin Mother wanted to contact Venerable Ingyang and tell him the truth. However, he could not hear her voice at all. The ringing in his ears because of the explosion had not stopped yet. He could not hear the voice transmission of the great priestess Yin Mother at all. He was being controlled by the fear that he had created himself. On the 6th level of the Earth Abyss, the omniscient old man was assembling the new puppet body of Stone Warrior in his research room. Suddenly, his hands stopped moving as if he had sensed something. That feeling just now seemed to be 2 to 1. Tao begets 1, 1 begets 2, 2 begets 3. This path is irreversible. If we go against it, immortals will collapse and the world will be destroyed. No, no, no. How could it be 2 to 1? It should be an illusion. It must be an illusion. However, what is the Yin and Yang sect? What is 2 to 1? Oh right, Master said that 2 to 1 means to combine 2 into 1. It means to trace back to the origin. But who is Master? His Tao has been destroyed. The Tao can no longer exist. What am I saying? Why can't I understand it? The omniscient old man who did not have a good memory shook his head and put the illusion behind him. He continued to work happily. Assembling puppets was his favorite thing to do. Chapter 1199. Ning Fan killed the corpse slave king, but he was not happy. This time, he had made sufficient observations to deal with the corpse slave king. It could be said that he had planned before taking action. According to his prediction, after the inverse sea horizon merged with the sword theory of the Yin-Yang 5 swords, its power would increase tremendously due to the superposition of its supernatural powers. However, it would still take at least 400 breaths to kill the corpse slave king. Even if there was a large error in the prediction, the error should not be so large. But he was wrong, ridiculously wrong. After inverse seas boundless merged with the Yin and Yang sword theory, the killing effect of the corpse slave king far exceeded his expectations. It only took him 9 breaths to kill the corpse slave king. The explosion of the seawater was not part of his plan. Killing the corpse slave king in 9 breaths was also not part of the plan. The world drowning bottle had been broken once again, so it was even more impossible for this to be part of the plan. Ning Fan did not like this kind of battle that was full of surprises and beyond his control. If I hadn't prepared an escape route in advance, I'm afraid I would have suffered a great loss, Ning Fan sighed. At this moment, his entire body was covered with wounds and bloodstains. Some of the wounds were badly mutilated while others were burnt. Some of the wounds were so deep that even his bones could be seen. Leija's injuries were more severe than Zhong Yu's. Black smoke rose from his body, and his limbs were severely charred. He couldn't even move. If it wasn't for his weak aura, others would have thought that he was a pile of burning charcoal instead of a person. Since old ancestor Lei Zhe had temporarily lost his ability to move, Ning Fan had no choice but to carry him on his back and run through the teleportation passageway of the 6 paths of teleportation technique. In order to capture Hua Hua, the queen of the Light Ant clan, Ning Fan had made 2 preparations beforehand. Firstly, he had secretly summoned the underworld ghost flower in the void and caught Kobixiong, a fusion quasi-sage, off guard. Secondly, he had opened up a 6 paths teleportation gate in the void beforehand. Once the situation was not right, he could teleport away at any time. It could be said that it was the 6 portals that had been opened beforehand that had saved him. When Ni Hai Wuya's seawater exploded, the heaven and earth momentum and space density of the surrounding continents were severely altered. Yin and Yang were reversed, and the universe was in chaos. This kind of situation was impossible to occur under normal circumstances, but it really did happen. At the moment of the explosion, Patriarch Leija tried to escape using his escape technique, but he failed one after another. At that time, Yin and yang were reversed, and the universe was in chaos. The cultivator's connection with the world was completely severed by the explosion. A fish without water cannot swim forward, and so is Xiao. Patriarch Lui's could not use any escape technique in the Qianquan world where yin and yang were reversed. Not only old ancestor Lei Zhe, even Ning Fan could not open the second teleportation portal when the explosion started. Fortunately, Ning Fan had already prepared a teleportation gate of the 6 paths of reincarnation in advance. He was just afraid that something unexpected would happen. Caution is the parent of safety. The ancients did not lie to me. Fellow Taoist Ning. I finally understand. Why did you apologize to me? You are tricking me. Old ancestor Lei Zhe's face was filled with grief. He was truly the most foolish fool in the world. Why did he follow Ning Fan's side? Why did he want to protect Ning Fan? Did Ning Fan need his protection? Would someone who could capture a quasi-saint in 10 breaths and kill a corpse slave king in 9 breaths need his protection? He didn't help Ning Fan at all. Instead, he almost blew himself up. Just the thought of the earth-shattering explosion made Patriarch Lei Zhe sweat profusely. The heavens took pity on him. If he was completely involved in that kind of explosion, even if he did not die, he would lose his physical body completely. If it wasn't for Ning Fan who brought him into the 6 paths of reincarnation at the critical moment, he definitely would not have been reduced to a charcoal man. Thinking of this, charcoal patriarch, no Lui's patriarch felt a little guilty. It was also because Ning Fan brought an extra person with him that they were 1 step slower. In the end, Ning Fan was implicated by him and suffered a certain degree of impact from the explosion, causing him to be severely injured. Old ancestor Lei Zhe could imagine that if Ning Fan faces the corpse slave king alone, even if something unexpected happens, he could definitely escape unscathed. This young man is smart. He won't fight a battle that he is not confident in. Didn't you see that he had already prepared an escape route from the beginning? If it wasn't for him, Ning Fan's injuries could have been completely avoided. Not even a strand of his hair would have been burnt. Forget it. I won't blame you anymore. No matter what, you got injured in order to save me. Old ancestor Lei Zhe sighed weakly. Ning Fan's action of sacrificing himself to save him had actually touched his Tao heart, which had been cold for a long time. I can't hear you clearly. At this moment, Ning Fan's ears were filled with buzzing noises. How could he hear the voice of old ancestor Lei Zhe who was on his back? His expression was solemn. He was running at full speed in the passageway, racing against time. The passageway behind him could no longer withstand the impact of the explosion, and began to collapse. He must rush to the other end of the 6 paths of reincarnation, before the passageway completely collapses. But there's one thing that I can't figure out. The explosion you made killed the corpse slave king, in just 9 breaths. Why did it not seem to be that strong? What I mean is not that your explosion isn't strong. Old ancestor Lei Zhe's ears were also ringing incessantly. He could not hear Ning Fan's voice, but he still asked the question in his mind, as if he was talking to himself. Then he tragically bit his tongue that was burnt to a crisp. Crack, his tongue was bitten off. However, it was no wonder that old ancestor Lei Zhe was puzzled, because the explosion that Ning Fan caused was really strange. It was true that the power of the explosion was very strong, but it was only twice as strong as the boundless sea. It was just enough to threaten the life of a first-grade quasi-saint like old ancestor Lei Zhe. However, it might not necessarily be able to kill him. Even old ancestor Lei Zhe could not kill him with 100% certainty. However, it only took him 9 breaths to kill the corpse slave king, which had hundreds of times more blood essence than old ancestor Lei Zhe. It was as if the explosion that Ning Fan created could cause hundreds, or even thousands of times more damage to the corpse slave king. I can't hear you clearly. Ning Fan still could not hear what old ancestor Lei Zhe said. He also did not know that old ancestor Lei Zhe was unlucky enough to have bitten off his tongue. Bean friend, you're really crafty. You actually left a pot of teleportation stealing beans. Old ancestor Lei Zhe said vaguely. I don't understand. Ning Fan's ringing in his ears was slightly better, but this time, he could not understand what old ancestor Lei Zhe was talking about. Only a few Teleportation stealing beans. Where will it be? Old Ancestor Leja said worriedly. The restriction on spirit sense in the 12th floor of the Earth Abyss was too heaven-defying. Without the guidance of spirit sense, any long-distance teleportation could only be done randomly. It was impossible to choose the destination. If he is lucky, he might end up in a safe place where there were no enemies. If he is unlucky, he might even end up in the royal palace of the Light Ant clan. I don't understand. Ning Fan still could not understand what old Ancestor Leja was talking about. Coincidentally, Ning Fan was also worried about the same thing at this moment. Even though he could open a portal of the 6 paths in advance, he could not control where it would end up. I'm seriously injured now. If I end up in the middle of the Light Ant clan's encirclement, it will be bad. Speaking of which, why did the sword principles of the 5 yin-yang swords cause such an unforeseen event? I can understand a little bit, but there are still many things that I don't understand. It seems like when the two types of divine abilities fused together, it produced some kind of violent change that I can't control. Because of that, I was still injured even though I was confident that I could kill the corpse slave king. Besides, because of the sudden explosion, the production of the undying ghost soldiers was also affected. This was what made Ning Fan the most unhappy. In his plan, after killing the corpse slave king, he should find a safe place to produce the undying ghost soldiers. But look at the result. That uncontrollable explosion injured even the underworld ghost flower. Similarly, the other 3 undying ghost soldiers were also injured. One should know that the undying ghost soldiers and the underworld ghost flower also had the characteristics of the undying creatures. Hence, they were also restrained by the life executioner sword. If Ning Fan could perfectly control the endless reverse sea, which had fused with the sword principles of the life executioner sword, the underworld ghost flower could avoid part of the seawater which had fused with the sword principles. Unfortunately, forget about controlling it, the explosion was completely out of control. Under such circumstances, even the roots of the underworld ghost flower were injured. If it wasn't for Ning Fan who immediately recalled the underworld ghost flower and the undying ghost soldiers, forget about producing the corpse slave king and the undying ghost soldiers. He might even lose the 3 ghost soldiers including the soul-absorbing tree. No matter how the corpse slave king attacked, the 3 ghost soldiers could not be killed. If Ning Fan made a mistake and killed them himself, that would be a real joke. The corpse slave king is just too strong. The success rate of using it to produce the ghost soldiers is already extremely low. Now that the underworld ghost flower's roots are damaged, I'm afraid the success rate will be reduced again. The production of the undying ghost soldiers must be completed within 24 hours after the death of the ghost soldiers. It's almost impossible to fully recover the injuries of the underworld ghost flower in just 24 hours. It seems like the production of the undying ghost soldiers this time is really going to fail again. Ning Fan heaved a sigh. All of a sudden, he put away all the distracting thoughts in his mind. His eyes turned solemn and vigilant. The teleportation exit of the 6 paths of teleportation technique was right in front of him. He was not sure where the teleportation point would be this time. If the teleportation point was within the encirclement of the Light Ant quasi-saints, he might have to fight with his life on the line. An ancient sky made of flesh and blood. A world of flames made of flesh and blood. This was a place that had been forgotten by time. All of a sudden, a towering and gigantic door appeared out of thin air in the sky of flesh and blood. At the next moment, a severely injured young man carrying a charcoal man on his back rushed out of the gigantic door and stepped into this world of flesh and blood. At the next moment, blazing flames burst out from the inside of the gigantic door. Then the door was devoured by the flames and turned into ashes. That was close. A drop of sweat mixed with ashes appeared on old ancestor Lei Zai's forehead. That was close. Ning Fan heaved a sigh of relief. If he was half a step slower, he would have been dragged into the teleportation and collapsed. Where is this place? Are we still on the 12th floor? Ning Fan asked. Not really. Not really. Not really. Old ancestor Lei Zai observed the surrounding terrain and gave a conclusion. This was definitely not the 12th floor. There was no place on the 12th floor that had such an environment of flesh and blood. There was another reason that made old ancestor Lei very certain of his conclusion. It was the geomagnetism. The geomagnetism could interfere with a cultivator's spirit sense. However, the strength of the geomagnetism could also be used to determine the depth of the space in the light ancestor's earth abyss. Judging from the strength of the geomagnetism, this world of flesh and blood should be a few times deeper than the 12th floor of the earth abyss. However, didn't the earth abyss of the light ancestor only have 12 floors? The 12th floor should be the lowest level of the earth abyss. How could there be other places that are so much deeper than the 12th floor? I don't understand. Similarly, Ning Fan was also confused. However, what old ancestor Lei said was what Ning Fan could not understand. Forgive him for his low intelligence. He really could not understand this kind of strange language that was spoken with a broken tongue. Fortunately, Ning Fan also knew how to determine his current location based on the strength of the geomagnetism. After investigating, Ning Fan was also surprised. Judging from the depth of the geomagnetism, he was currently in a space that was even lower than the 12th floor of the earth abyss. The surrounding world of flesh and blood gave Ning Fan an extremely familiar feeling. Yes, it was the nest of the Ant Lords. The nest of the Ant Lords that he destroyed last time was also in a similar environment. However, the environment this time gave him an unprecedented sense of uneasiness. It seemed to be countless times more dangerous than the nest of the Ant Lords that he encountered last time. The information that I gathered at the last minute didn't include this place. It's still unknown whether this place is really another nest of the Ant Lords. After all, I was attacked by the powerful tentacles inside when I just passed by the nest of the Ant Lords last time. If this is really the nest of the Ant Lords, why didn't the tentacles attack me? The chief at this place gave Ning Fan was very ominous. This place was also very safe. He could not see a single enemy. Ning Fan began to investigate the dangers of this place. After a while, he realized that other than the fire elemental energy that was stronger than the 12th floor of the earth abyss, there did not seem to be anything else that was worth paying attention to. What was even stranger was that for some reason, this world of flesh and blood seemed to be able to cut off the surveillance of the red name above his head. The feeling of being targeted by the experts of the Light Ancestor clan actually disappeared. Cough, cough, cough. Old ancestor Lei suddenly coughed violently, coughing out mouthfuls of golden blood mixed with soot. Once a cultivator reaches the immortal emperor realm, the origin of their blood would turn golden. Now that old ancestor Lei even coughed out golden blood, it was obvious that he could no longer suppress the injuries in his body. Seeing this, Ning Fan no longer had the leisure to investigate where this place was. He had to help old ancestor Lei treat his injuries. Considering that there might be unknown dangers in this place, Ning Fan released the Black Devil, Afro, Tao Annihilation Lightning Nascent Soul, and the Ancestral Lightning Sparrow to protect him. Even the Ancestral Lightning Sparrow came out to protect him? Yes. The Tao Annihilation Lightning Nascent Soul riding the Ancestral Lightning Sparrow was his strongest form. The Ancestral Lightning Sparrow had completely become his mount. Master, you're injured. Why is it so serious? Quickly drink a mouthful of the Black Devil's blood to treat your injuries. When the Black Devil saw that Ning Fan was losing blood all over his body, his cold face was instantly filled with anxiety. He rolled up his sleeves and stood on his tiptoes, placing his wrist in front of Ning Fan. He actually wanted to let Ning Fan bite his wrist. The soul blood of an adult 9 raccoon was a heaven-defying item that could prolong one's life. Even if it was just ordinary blood, it also had a very nourishing effect. Consuming it would allow one to obtain a large amount of life force, which was very beneficial for healing injuries. Ning Fan could not help but laugh. He patted the Black Devil's little head and comforted her. You're really a silly cat. It's just a flesh wound. You can heal it with ordinary methods. If I bite you just because of this injury, it won't be worth it at all. It's not good to let the little cat use its blood to treat its master's injuries. People who truly love their pets would never expect their pets to give them anything in return. Master is right. It's my fault for not thinking it through. My blood should only be used at a critical moment. It should only be used when Master needs it the most. The Black Devil nodded her head as if she understood Ningfan's words. She had the resolve to sacrifice her life for Ningfan at any time. That's not what I meant. Forget it. Ningfan pinched the Black Devil's little face affectionately and sighed. This little cat was good at everything, but she was too blindly loyal. After all these years, even though he had raised the little cat to have the temperament of a little girl, she still stubbornly adhered to her nature. That was something that could not be changed no matter what. The Black Devil's face slightly reddened. Even though she had warmed Ningfan's bed a long time ago, she still felt a little shy. It was fine if he touched the cat's body, but the human's body was a little. Go. Keep an eye on the surroundings. This place gives me a very unusual feeling. Even though I can't see any danger for the time being, it could also be that the danger in this place has completely exceeded our understanding. If that's the case, then it will be really troublesome. The Black Devil will obey Master's orders. As long as it's Master's order, the Black Devil will do anything. The Black Devil received the order and immediately led her army of subordinates to guard Ningfan. Under her request, Ningfan even let out the quasi-emperor puppet He Xiaolian, which he had not seen for a long time, to join the patrol team. This made Aphrodite very envious. She could see that Ningfan really doted on the Black Devil. That kind of doting had nothing to do with love. It did not even include the complexity of interpersonal relationships. With the little cat and Aphrodite guarding him, Ningfan could more or less feel at ease. Old ancestor Leisha's injuries were very serious. Fortunately, Ningfan had a lot of 9 Revolution Golden pills and Emperor-grade pills. When the bottles of healing pills were placed in front of him, he was dazzled. After consuming a few bottles of pills, the carbonization of his body was obviously reduced. Even his broken tongue had grown back. Now that his tongue had grown back, his injuries began to heal. Now he could speak clearly and fluently. Looking at the dazzling array of pills, he could not help but exclaim in surprise. This is the Emperor-grade pill, the blood-thought pill of the Dark World. Isn't this the forbidden pill of the Dark Race in the Eastern Heaven? How did fellow Taoists get it? Of course, I snatched it from the Dark Race. Ningfan was speechless at the old ancestor Leisha's reaction. However, he did not tell the old ancestor Leisha about it, because he was afraid that it would frighten him. Attacking a secret race single-handedly does seem a little shocking. It's actually the Divine Crow Wound Healing Pill. Even though it's just a gold-grade pill, it's even more effective than many 9 Revolution Emperor-grade pills when it comes to healing burns. I've seen the recipe of this pill before. It requires a few types of medicinal ingredients, which can only be found under the World River. It also requires the flesh and blood of the Divine Crow race to concoct it. Due to the limitation of the ingredients, it's very difficult to see the finished product of this pill in the Age of Chaos. How did fellow Taoists get the ingredients? Of course, I went to the bottom of the World River and picked up the flesh and blood of the blood god Gengwu. Alright. Ningfan did not plan to tell the old ancestor Leisha about it. This is the Tai Heavenly Capital Pill. It's said that this pill is the most precious treasure of the Eastern Heavens Godly Void Pavilion. There are only 3 of them in total. But why do you have 2 of them? What's your relationship with the Godly Void Pavilion? Don't tell this old man that stingy Xiang Hezi is actually generous enough to hand over such a precious pill to you? Senior Xiang is a cheapskate? I don't believe it. This is the 12 Jade Pavilion pills. It's the secret pill of the Southern Heaven Calamity Clan. You actually have it. Calamity Clan? Oh, I think he killed a few immortal emperors of the Southern Heaven Calamity Clan during the monarch conferral ceremony. This is the Great Return True Pill. This is a pill that I can't even name. What kind of pill is this? Alright. Ningfan could not recognize all of his pills. Fortunately, he could communicate with all things in the world. By asking about the pills, he could answer the old ancestor Leisha. It turned out that those pills that he could not name were obtained from the treasure vault of the Black Fate sect. It was unknown which force old Wu Ba and his disciples had extorted them from. From Ningfan's point of view, healing pills were just healing pills. Their purpose was just to heal one's injuries after consuming them. It was not a big deal. However, the old ancestor Leisha did not think so. he would think more about the reason why Ning Fan had so many powerful pills. The origin of these pills was basically from the top forces in the Age of Chaos. Since Ning Fan had so many powerful pills at the same time, the mysterious aura around him seemed to have thickened. Fellow Taoist, are you really not an ancient great cultivator? The old ancestor Leisha began to doubt Ning Fan's identity again. No. This time, Ning Fan really did not bother to disguise himself as an ancient great cultivator. I don't believe it. Ning Fan no longer talked nonsense with the old ancestor Leisha. Seeing that the old ancestor Leisha's healing process was on the right track, he began to consume the pills to heal himself. Even though his injuries were not light, he was able to avoid the attacks that were aimed at his vital parts. After consuming a large number of pills, and using them together with his powerful healing techniques, more than half of his injuries were healed in less than 8 hours. As for the rest of his injuries, he did not have the time to heal them. There were only less than 8 hours left for him to create the corpse slaves and ghost soldiers. Even though the chances are slim, I still have to give it a try. But before I create the ghost soldiers, I need to heal the underworld ghost flower. However, how do I heal the underworld ghost flower after it's injured? I'm not good at spiritual plants. My knowledge of a unique plant like the underworld ghost flower is even more limited. If that's the case, what should I do in order to? Why don't I ask the underworld ghost flower directly? Hence, in front of the old ancestor Leisha, Ning Fan summoned the underworld ghost flower again. Then, like a lunatic, Ning Fan began to chat with the flower. Of course, he was not a lunatic. However, in the old ancestor Leisha's eyes, Ning Fan's current behavior really resembled a lunatic's. The old ancestor Leisha's mouth was wide open in shock. In a trance, he suddenly felt that Ning Fan's lunatic behavior was very similar to another old lunatic. Very similar. When the Yin and Yang sect was at its peak, wasn't there also an old lunatic in the sect who considered himself to be a plum wife and a crane son? That old lunatic was called the Yin and Yang sage. He took Plum as his wife and a crane as his son. However, that crane betrayed him in the end. The old ancestor Leisha suddenly felt tears welling up in his eyes. From Ning Fan's lunatic behavior, he saw the shadow of the Yin and Yang sage. He also saw the continuous succession of lunatics in the Yin and Yang sect. The Yin and Yang sect really had not stopped. His original intention of giving up everything to protect Ning Fan was indeed correct, even though he did not really have the ability to protect Ning Fan. So that's how it is. It turns out that you only need to absorb the flesh and blood of experts as nutrients to heal your injuries quickly. The more serious your injuries are, the higher the level of the flesh and blood you need. Judging from the injuries caused by the explosion, you will need at least the flesh and blood of a second-grade quasi-saint to heal your injuries. Unfortunately, I don't have the means to get you such a high level of flesh and blood. Will a low-level flesh and blood do? If it's a low-level flesh and blood, will my recovery speed be very slow? How slow will it be? 10 years? Isn't that too long? Doesn't this mean that within 10 years, not only will the success rate of my creation of corpse slaves and ghost soldiers affect my success rate as well? Are you not mistaken? There is a huge amount of blood essence of experts hidden under this land of flames. Is it enough to heal your injuries? How strong are they? What? How is this possible? The blood of a saint. It's buried under this land of flames. This was the answer that the underworld ghost flower gave Ning Fan. It said that this land of flesh and blood that Ning Fan accidentally entered had a terrifying amount of blood of a saint. But how is this possible? There were no saints in the Age of Chaos, right? Is there really blood of a saint here? What exactly is this land of flesh and blood? While old ancestor Leisha was looking at a lunatic, Ning Fan suddenly stood up and summoned the sea reverse sword, digging a hole in the ground. Old ancestor Leisha did not know why Ning Fan wanted to dig a hole in the ground, and what he wanted to dig. Just as he was about to ask, Ning Fan stopped digging the hole. It was because he had failed. Even with the sharpness of the sea reverse sword, it could only dig 300 zhang into the ground. Below that, the rock layer was so hard that even the sea reverse sword could not dig through it. At this moment, Ningfan finally believed that there might be the blood of a saint buried in this land. Unfortunately, even though he knew that there was blood of a saint buried in the ground, he could not dig it out. The rock layer was too hard. What could he do? This land of flesh and blood was very likely to be the forbidden land of the Light Ant clan. He seemed to have accidentally stumbled into an extremely troublesome place. Master, something bad has happened. Black smoke that blotted out the sky appeared from the extreme east. Those black smoke are approaching this place. Obviously they are coming for us. The black devil who was patrolling suddenly discovered something. It seems like we have been discovered. However, I don't know what the cultivation base of the intruder is. If it's a quasi-saint. Ningfan's eyes turned solemn. Even though old ancestor Leija's injuries had been stabilized, it would still take a long time for him to fully recover. Ningfan's injuries had only healed by 50 to 60%. If the enemy is a quasi-saint of the Light Ant clan, he was afraid that he would have to fight a tough battle. Ningfan still remembered his previous encounter in the nest of the Light Ant clan. At that time, he had a battle with the silver-armored quasi-saint of the Light Ant clan. He had a deep impression of the fact that the silver-armored quasi-saint could borrow the power of the nest to fight. If this land of flesh and blood in front of him is also a nest of the Light Ant clan, it would definitely be of a higher level than the previous nest. This was the home ground of the Light Ant clan. If he were to encounter a quasi-saint of the Light Ant clan here, he would definitely be in a disadvantageous situation. It was getting closer and closer. The rolling black smoke was moving at an extremely fast speed. In just an instant it had arrived. As soon as the black smoke dispersed, a row of prison wagons was revealed. Around the prison wagons were hundreds of experts of the Light Ant clan who were escorting them. All of them were dressed like soldiers. Among these experts of the Light Ant clan, the weakest one was a true Immortal Realm expert. The one with the highest cultivation base was a female general. She was actually a quasi-saint. That female general was stepping on the black smoke. Her face was also covered by the black smoke, making it hard to see her face clearly. However, one could really see that her beautiful eyes were filled with merciless cold light. Her figure was very graceful, but it was wrapped under a big red cloak, making it hard to see her face clearly. Under the cloak, one could vaguely see the dark red scale armor she was wearing. On the cloak, there were lotus flowers of karmic fire embroidered on it. You are actually the sinners targeted by the red names of the heavens? Are you the prisoners that the high priest of the Een Mother imprisoned here? Who escorted you here? How dare you enter this place without my permission again? Humph. The branch of the high priest is looking down on me more and more. The female general said with displeasure. After seeing the red name above Ningfan's head, she seemed to have misunderstood something. She was undoubtedly a quasi-saint of the Light Ant clan, but she did not know Leija. However, Leija knew her. Honglian. She is the general of the Light Ant clan, Honglian. Leija exposed the female general's identity. General Honglian, huh? Ningfan's eyes flashed slightly. His enemy was a quasi-saint, but she just had to be a woman. He had to admit that this was really a blessing in disguise. That is, Ningfan suddenly noticed that among the many prisoner carriages that the Light Ant clan sent to this place, one of them looked familiar. There was actually a soft mud monster in that carriage. When Ningfan saw the soft mud monster, the soft mud monster also saw Ningfan. The moment she saw Ningfan, she could not help but burst into tears. This time, she was truly touched by Ningfan. She just tried to cut off a strand of her black hair to ask Ningfan for help. However, that was just a desperate attempt. She did not expect that Ningfan would really risk his life to save her. However, Ningfan really came. When she was at her most desperate moment, he stepped on a 7-colored auspicious cloud and barged into her heart like a hero. He was her hero. She felt ashamed of her despicable actions of bullying Ningfan in the past. Why are you so nice to me? I'm just a lump of mud. You actually barged into the 13th spine of the Ant Lord just to save me. The soft mud monster cried until she turned into a lump of mud. Ningfan really wanted to tell the soft mud monster that even though he really wanted to save her, it was really just a coincidence that they met right now. Was it really okay for a little girl to be touched so easily? It turned out that after the soft mud monster was captured on the 12th floor, she was imprisoned in the most secret place in the Light Ancestors' Earth Abyss, the 13th floor. As for Ning Fan, he was coincidentally teleported to this place randomly. This was the fate that the Buddhist sect talked about. It was also the law of fate that the Taoist sect talked about. Everything was decided by the heavens. So you're not a prisoner? You actually came here to rescue me? This is really interesting. This 13th spine is my territory. How dare you come here to court death? Hong Lian's beautiful eyes flashed with cold light. She did not intend to give Ning Fan and his group any chance to explain themselves. She had already summoned the black smoke and attacked them. The injuries of the Netherworld Ghost Flower and the indestructible Ghost Soldier haven't recovered yet. As such, I can only fight this battle alone. Qi Ning Fan's body swayed and dashed towards Hong Lian. At the next moment, the golden light of the divine spirit collided with the dark red smoke that blotted out the sky. Chapter 1200. In the Ant Clan, mothers were respected and women were valued. As a member of the Ant Clan, the Light Ant Clan also adhered to the same tradition. All the power in the clan was controlled by women. The Great Priestess Yin Mu, the General Hong Lian, the dethroned Emperor Hua Shi and the Empress Hua Hua. In the Light Ant Clan, the 4 women held supreme positions. No one dared to offend them. After living in luxury for many years, the 4 women had developed a sense of arrogance. Among them, the General Hong Lian was the most arrogant. Red Lotus did have the right to be proud. Her magic power was more than 14,000 calamities, and her cultivation was considered average among the first tribulation quasi-saints in the Dharma-ending era. She had obtained the recognition of the ant race's primogenitor. Once she released the ant ancestral force in her body, even the high priestess of the same race would have to be wary of her. When she was young, she had obtained a great opportunity and swallowed a rare treasure. She could summon the legendary karmic fire of the Buddha sect to hurt her enemies. She was also a rare person who had cultivated the second stage of the Dharma-ending era. Once the second stage of the Dharma-ending era was activated, she was almost invincible among the first-level quasi-saints. Once she activated her second stage true body, she was almost invincible among first-level quasi-saints. She did have the right to be arrogant. Ning Fan's magic power was indeed shocking. However, the purity of his magic power was too low. Moreover, he was severely injured. Thus, he could only unleash about 70 to 80% of his strength at most. Thus, she really looked down on him. She had heard a little about the name of old ancestor Lei Zhe. However, his injuries were even worse than Ning Fan's. He could not even stand steadily. Thus, his threat was close to zero. As for the small fries like Aphrodite, Black Devil, Tao Annihilation Lightning Infant and Ancestral Lightning Sparrow, they were not even quasi-saints. Thus, they were even less of a threat to her. This place was isolated from the 12th level of the Earth Abyss. Thus, she still did not know about Ning Fan's various atrocities. If she knew about Ning Fan's achievements of capturing Hua Hua alive and killing the corpse slave king with an explosion, she would certainly not dare to look down on him. Unfortunately, she did not know about it. How dare you invade the 13 spines with just these few people? I really don't know if I should praise your courage or laugh at your ignorance. The black smoke of the Tao soul sealed the sky and locked the soul. Seeing that Ning Fan actually dared to face her head-on, Hong Lian's eyes flashed with disdain. She stopped charging forward and took a graceful step forward. Billowing black smoke rushed towards Ning Fan. Wherever the smoke and dust passed by, even the sky was dyed with a layer of strange black that could not be washed away. The Light Ant race was a member of the Tao Soul race. This black smoke was condensed by Hong Lian using the Light Ant soul power in her body. It could lock onto an enemy's soul, causing them to feel dizzy and their battle prowess to decrease. In severe cases, it could even cause them to faint. As soon as they started fighting, Red Lotus did not hold back at all. Seeing the strange black smoke rushing towards him, Ning Fan activated his eternal true body without hesitation, trying to use his true body to defend against the impact of the black smoke. However, he still felt dizzy from the impact of the strange black smoke. His forward momentum came to a halt, and he even began to wobble in the sky. The black smoke seemed to have an endless resistance force. Ning Fan could not get out of the range of the black smoke at all. He was completely trapped within it. What kind of smoke is this? Even with the sturdiness of my divine spirit sea of consciousness, I still feel dizzy from the smoke. Even though it's partly because of my injuries, it's still enough to show that this smoke is extraordinary. Ning Fan was extremely surprised. If it were someone else with a slightly weaker sea of consciousness, they would probably be directly knocked out by this black smoke. With his eyesight, he could tell that the black smoke did not enchant the physical body but the soul. The ability itself was not that profound, but the principle behind it made Ning Fan's eyes light up. A bewildering smoke that specializes in injuring the soul. This technique is very suitable for cultivators who use the art of charm like me. Don't you dare hurt my master. As soon as Black Devil saw Ning Fan being attacked by the black smoke, he immediately became anxious and wanted to lend him a hand. How could he not be anxious? The enemy's aura alone was enough to tell that he was very strong. Unfortunately, Ning Fan was severely injured and his strength had been greatly weakened. Retreat. It's just some soul smoke. It's not difficult to destroy it. Ning Fan's voice came from within the billowing black smoke, stopping Black Devil from helping him. What a joke! How would Ning Fan dare to ask the Black Devil clan for help in a battle of quasi-saints like this? Even though the Black Devil clan's 9 raccoon bloodline was extremely powerful, his cultivation base was still limited after all. It would be very dangerous for him to get involved in such a battle. As a master, he was actually worried by his pet. He was a failure as a master. It won't be hard to destroy some soul smoke? Dogman, how dare you look down on my black smoke? Very good, you asked for it. Hong Lian's phoenix eyes turned cold. She was actually being looked down upon. How infuriating. Great soul smoke. With a pinch of the red lotus finger, the stun effect of the black smoke skyrocketed several times in an instant. Ning Fan felt a sharp pain in his sea of consciousness. Caught off guard, he felt dizzy and his vision blurred. The world in front of him seemed to have double shadows. Strange. Even if ordinary demi-saints don't get knocked out by my great soul smoke, their sea of consciousness would still be damaged, and they would cough out some blood. However, this young man actually withstood the great soul smoke and remained unscathed. Hong Lian was finally surprised. Naturally, it was impossible for Ning Fan to let the black smoke attack him without retaliating. Since he could not break out of the black smoke's encirclement, he might as well destroy the black smoke that covered the entire sky. The eternal true body flipped its giant hand, and the sea-defying sword appeared in its hand. It slashed at the black smoke again and again. Rays of sword light in the shape of Magatama exploded within the black smoke. Boom! Each time the sword light exploded, the black smoke would fade a little. After hundreds of slashes, the black smoke that covered the entire sky was finally extinguished by Ning Fan. Could this Dao weapon be the sword of a disciple of the chaotic Kuan sacred sect? I see. No wonder a mere Dao weapon could break my great soul smoke technique. It's even better that you are a disciple of the chaotic Kuan sacred sect. I have long been displeased with the sight of disciples of the chaotic Kuan sacred sect. Now I have one more reason to kill you. It seems like I need to be a little more serious. Hong Lian seemed to have been angered by the name of the chaotic Kuan sacred sect. Her eyes became much more serious. She waved her palm and 2 blazing flame halberds suddenly appeared in her hands. Dao weapon Lotus Halberd. It was a Dao weapon with a pair of halberds. It gave off a powerful chi that was not any weaker than a mid-grade innate magic treasure. Obviously, Hong Lian was also a unique species as she had forged her Dao weapon into an extraordinarily powerful one. The halberds shone with purple chi. It seemed like she had consumed a large amount of heavenly Dao purple chi in order to forge them. To the arrogant Hong Lian, being willing to use her Dao weapon to fight against Ning Fan was already a sign of her overestimating him. What she overestimated was not Ning Fan himself, but his identity as a disciple of the chaotic Kuan sacred sect. However, Ning Fan still felt that he was being looked down upon. He had already activated his eternal true body a long time ago. However, Hong Lian did not bother to use her true body and put on an air of, I can crush your true body in my normal state. If this isn't looking down on me, what is? This lady's arrogance was obvious. Of course, considering the difference in strength between him and the enemy, Ning Fan did not mind being looked down upon by Hong Lian. The more she underestimated him, the higher the success rate of him sneak attacking her with his bewitching technique. It seems like I can make use of this lady's irritable personality. She seems to think that I'm a disciple of the chaotic Kuan sacred sect. Since that's the case, I'll just let her continue to misunderstand me. The sacred ant sect is just so. Your Dao weapon is not as good as mine. If we fight in close combat against my weapon, I will definitely shatter your halberd within 10 moves. Unfortunately, you don't dare to do so. Ning Fan suddenly opened his mouth and provoked her. In order to sneak attack her with his bewitching technique, he naturally needed to get close to her. If he could provoke her into taking the initiative to fight him in close combat, it would certainly save him a lot of trouble. Sneak attacks are despicable, but so what? As a devil lord, do I need to care about morality? Humph. You chaotic Kuan sacred sect only know how to use your tongue. Shatter my Dao weapon within 10 moves? What arrogance! Today, I, the disciple of the sacred ant sect, will let this person know that the prestige of my sect is not to be insulted. Hong Lian was easily enraged by Ning Fan. She actually dashed towards him and engaged him in a close-quarters combat. Today, I, the Hongjun sect, sacred ant sect. Hong Lian's words revealed a lot of information. Unfortunately, Ning Fan was not interested in this kind of information. He was only interested in capturing human cauldrons. Seeing that Hong Lian was already in front of him, Ning Fan swung his sword with his golden body technique and clashed with Hong Lian's halberd. Within tens of breaths, the two of them had exchanged hundreds of moves. Ning Fan was originally very confident in the battle of Dao weapons. However, the result gave him a huge shock. His ocean-defying sword actually fell into a disadvantageous position. The grade of the ocean-defying sword was obviously much higher than the lotus halberd. However, Hong Lian seemed to have an inexplicable power that could negate more than half of the ocean-defying sword's power. This is too abnormal. Fortunately, Ning Fan did not expect to kill Hong Lian with the ocean-defying sword at all. The arrogant words he said just now were just to provoke her. His bewitching technique was his trump card. He must kill Hong Lian in a single strike under the most confident situation. You dog. Didn't you say that you would shatter my Dao weapon within 10 moves? It has already been 600 moves. My Dao weapon is still intact, but your Dao weapon seems to be on the verge of collapsing. Hong Lian smiled complacently. 600 moves. 700 moves. 800 moves. When the two of them exchanged 800 moves, the ocean-defying sword actually let out a cry accompanied by Hong Lian's complacent laughter. Crack, 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 that it was the body of the sword that was trembling. It became a little unstable, as if it was going to break at any moment. It was not the lotus halberd itself that hurt the ocean-defying sword. Instead, it was some kind of power that existed in Hong Lian's body that caused great damage to the ocean-defying sword and restrained it. This is the first time that the ocean-defying sword is being suppressed like this. What exactly is the mysterious power in this lady's body? Why can it suppress my Dao weapon? Fine. I will naturally find out everything after I capture her. The cross-shaped halberd was suddenly activated. The area within 1,000 zhang of Ning Fan's body was instantly sealed by the cross-shaped halberd. The black cross-shaped halberd looked like 2 star rings that revolved around a cultivation planet, and Ning Fan was the cultivation planet that was surrounded by the star rings. The halberd could automatically activate its offensive ability. The sky sealing technique was released from the halberd more than 10 times in a breath, freezing Hong Lian on the spot, and making her feel like dying. Hong Lian's complacent smile instantly froze on her face, and turned into intense fear. She actually could not move. Saint ring. No. It's not the saint ring. This is the reincarnation sealing technique. No. It's not. What have you done? Damn it. It turns out that you have such a technique. That's why you purposely provoked me and made me fight you in close combat. I actually fell into your trap. She began to speak incoherently. She was just easily angered, but she was not an idiot. At this moment, how could she not see that she had fallen into Ning Fan's trap? Anger. Anger. Embarrassment turned into anger. Without any hesitation, Hong Lian activated her ancestor force. The freezing effect of the cross-shaped halberd was indeed powerful, but it was not like she did not have the ability to forcefully break free from it. However, would Ning Fan give her the time to do so? A bewitching technique from his finger immediately landed on Hong Lian's body, forming countless bewitching seals inside her body. Damn it. You actually used a bewitching technique to sneak attack me. How shameless. Hong Lian's expression changed drastically. She was not really afraid of being hit by the sky sealing technique. After all, even if she did not move, it was impossible for her to be killed by Ning Fan within a short period of time. She was a quasi-Saint Realm expert after all. How could she be killed instantly? She had 100% confidence that she could activate her ancestral force to break free before Ning Fan killed her. However, Ning Fan used a despicable and shameless bewitching technique. It could not kill her or hurt her, but it could seal the flow of her magic power and the ancestral force in her body. Activating her ancestral force failed. Under the layers of bewitching seals, she seemed to no longer have the strength to resist Ning Fan's capture. You've lost. From today onwards, you are my human cauldron. Ning Fan said mercilessly. Human cauldron. So this is your real plan. Good. Very good. Ning Fan. Ning Fan. Ning Fan. I will never forget this name. I will get back at you very soon. Hong Lian gritted her teeth in hatred as if she wanted to chew and swallow Ning Fan's name. Ning Fan did not intend to talk nonsense with Hong Lian. He raised his hand and was about to plant more bewitching seals on her body. At this moment, an unexpected change occurred. Without any warning, Ning Fan suddenly felt an unprecedented sense of danger. Then his expression changed greatly as if he had noticed something. You still found me? Unfortunately, it's too late. Lotus Seed Clone explode. Boom boom boom. Hong Lian's body suddenly self-destructed. The self-destruction of a quasi-saint was extremely terrifying. Ning Fan and the others who had just escaped from the corpse slave king's explosion were once again caught in the explosion. Logically speaking, a woman who was under the control of bewitching techniques would not be able to use her magic power to detonate herself. However, something strange happened to Hong Lian. She actually did not need any magic power to circulate and self-destructed herself. The sky was collapsing and the earth was cracking. The world of flesh and blood in front of them was being destroyed by the self-destruction of a quasi-saint. The explosion lasted for a long time before it subsided. When it was over, the boundless world of flesh and blood was destroyed beyond recognition. To what extent was it destroyed beyond recognition? The rock stratum in this place was unusually hard. Ning Fan could only dig 300 zhang deep with the sea-defying sword. The rock stratum below 300 zhang was something that even the sea-defying sword could not break. As the self-destruction of a quasi-saint swept across the area, the rock stratum in many places was blasted to a depth of 5 to 600 zhang. Some places where the explosion was concentrated had even blasted the rock stratum to a depth of 1,000 zhang. There were even a few places where underground water was seeping out because the rock stratum was blasted too much. No. That is not underground water. On the surface, the water looked very clear. However, if one uses the eyesight of a heavenly being to look at it, they would discover that there was actually a trace of indescribably faint redness hidden in the clear underground water. That was the redness of blood. It was the blood of a saint that was unimaginably diluted. The underground water in this place actually contained an extremely small amount of the blood of a saint. The ghost flower of the netherworld did not lie. I was too careless. I didn't expect that Hong Lian who fought against me was not her true self, but an illusory existence like the clone of a tree demon. That was why she self-destructed without any hesitation. This woman's clone could actually self-destruct after being sealed by the bewitching technique. What an impressive technique. If I didn't react in time, I'm afraid my injuries would have worsened. Looking at the battle just now, Other than using the black smoke, this woman only used her Dao weapon. At first, I thought it was her arrogance. However, if the one she fought just now was just some kind of clone of her, it would make more sense. Her clone doesn't seem to be able to grasp too many types of abilities. Not being able to analyze this matter from the details is my first mistake in this battle. As for my second mistake, it's because I trusted the bewitching technique too much. Somewhere in the sky above the ruins, a giant teleportation gate suddenly appeared. Then, Ning Fan led his team and walked out of it. His expression was rather unpleasant. Initially, he thought that he had successfully captured the second quasi-saint human cauldron. However, he did not expect such an unforeseen event to happen. In the end, all his efforts were in vain. The one he captured was not Hong Lian's true self at all. Instead, it was some kind of clone that she cultivated. It was as if there was a warning bell ringing in his heart. All along, he seemed to have too much faith in the power of the bewitching technique. However, in reality, the yin-yang transformation and chaotic loop arts were only created by Great Emperor Ancient Chaos. Great Emperor Ancient Chaos was nearly invincible at the second step. He could also intimidate many saints at the third step. However, after all, he was not the strongest in the world. The bewitching technique created by Ancient Chaos was naturally not invincible and undefeatable. Ever since he started cultivating the Tao, he had never considered the possibility of his bewitching technique being broken. He had too much faith in the ability of bewitching techniques to restrain women. In other words, Hong Lian was not the only one who underestimated the enemy. He also underestimated himself. Fortunately, he was getting more and more experienced in escaping from explosions. This time, not only did he manage to escape from the explosion with his team, but he also brought the sludge monster in the prisoner carriage along with him. As for the other prisoners and the ordinary light ant experts who were escorting the prisoner carriage, all of them were killed by the explosion. Ning Fan was very sorry. He did not have extra time to save the others. Besides, he would not be so kind as to save the enemies of the light ant clan. Cough cough, brother Ning, I'm convinced. I'm really convinced. If I follow you, I will be bombed no matter where I go. Sooner or later, I will die together with you. The injuries of old ancestor Lei Zhe from the previous explosion had yet to heal. Right after that, he encountered another terrifying explosion. His heart almost jumped out of his throat. It was really fucking exciting. He was nearly scared to death. Master, are you alright? Brother Ning, are you alright? Great hero, are you alright? It was Black Devil, Afro and the sludge monster who were concerned about Ning Fan. They would not complain about Ning Fan like old ancestor Lei Zhe did. Ning Fan's luck with women had always been better than his luck with the old man. Of course, Ning Fan was fine. He glared at old ancestor Lei Zhe angrily. This fellow was saved by him once again. Not only did he not say a few words of gratitude, but he actually complained about him instead. Indeed, little Mao, and the others are more considerate. Brother Ning, what should we do next? If I'm not mistaken, the one who self-detonated just now was just some kind of clone of Hong Lian. Even though her clone was destroyed, her true body is still here. We have to be careful. After being glared at, old ancestor Lei Zhe immediately shut his mouth and stopped complaining. He did not know that Ning Fan had sneakily attacked female cultivators with his bewitching technique again. He only knew that Ning Fan had killed another quasi-saint realm expert, within a few hundred moves. Alright, the one Ning Fan killed was actually just a clone of Hong Lian, and not a real quasi-saint realm expert. After killing this clone, Ning Fan's baleful chi did not even increase by a single bit. However, this was enough to prove that Ning Fan was really powerful. This young man's glorious battle record has been added to another record. He really had some respect for Ning Fan now. Indeed, we have to be careful. Ning Fan sighed. When old ancestor Lei Zhe said that he had to be careful, it was just a casual remark. At this moment, he already had a blind trust in Ning Fan's strength. Even if Hong Lian's true body comes to kill him, he would not be worried. He was just giving him a casual reminder. However, Ning Fan was really a little worried. He was not sure if Hong Lian would be on guard against his bewitching technique the next time they meet. When some clones are killed, they would not transfer their memories to their true body. However, some clones would. If this woman is on guard the next time, it would be very difficult for his bewitching technique to work. There are actually so many places where the underground water has been blasted out. Ning Fan suddenly noticed that there were many places where the rock strata had been blasted apart. The underground water that seeped out from the broken rock strata actually carried traces of blood. There were too few traces of blood. It was so little that even an existence like old ancestor Lei Zhe could not detect it. However, it could not hide from Ning Fan's second-level heavenly being realm eyesight. Could it be that these traces of blood are the saint's blood? With this saint's blood, can the ghost flower of the netherworld heal itself? This is really a coincidence. The underground rock strata that he could not cut open no matter how hard he tried was actually blasted apart by Hong Lian's cloning technique. Should he thank Hong Lian for her righteous help? Master, I can feel a raging qi rushing towards this place from afar. That qi is very similar to the qi that attacked you just now. Black Devil reported. The drizzle that I spread out also sensed this. It's Hong Lian's true body without a doubt. It seems like her true body has received the news and is here to avenge her clone. Ning Fan frowned. It seemed like Hong Lian's true body also knew how powerful his bewitching technique was. Then should we leave or fight again? Please give the order, Master. Of course not. Based on my rain technique, even if Hong Lian's true body rushes to this place, she will need at least 2 hours. She is too far away. 2 hours is enough for me to do a lot of things. Ning Fan walked to a crack in the rock strata and summoned the ghost flower of the netherworld. Previously, he had a conversation with the ghost flower of the netherworld. If he uses low-grade flesh to heal the ghost flower, it would take 10 years to fully recover. However, if he uses the saint's blood, it would at most take the time for an incense stick to burn to fully recover. As long as it has sufficient nutrients, its regeneration speed would be astonishingly fast. When the ghost flower recovers, so what if Hong Lian's true body comes to kill him? Even if Hong Lian is wary of his bewitching technique, he would still have something to rely on. He could use the ghost soldiers to besiege her. Saint's blood. Saint's blood. It was the ghost flower's excited voice. Only Ning Fan could hear it. Drink. Drink to your heart's content. Hurry up and heal your injuries. Ning Fan said with a smile. You drink too. You drink too. The ghost flower of the netherworld said. I won't drink it. I know what kind of thing the saint's blood is. Even though there was a small amount of saint blood in the groundwater, it was not something that a second-step cultivator could consume. If I consume it directly, even if I don't die, my foundation will certainly be damaged. It's really not worth it. Of course, it's still useful to collect some extra saint blood. Ning Fan said regretfully. Unless it was a heaven-defying second-step cultivator, like the ancient Chaos Heavenly Emperor, consuming the blood of a saint was equivalent to courting death. I'll help you. I'll help you. The saint went berserk and spilled blood to become a demon. You are an ancient demon. I will help you and you can drink it alive. Can you help me? But what does this have to do with me being an ancient devil? Ning Fan was surprised. As he continued to communicate with the ghost flower of the netherworld, Ning Fan's eyes gradually turned solemn. Old ancestor Lei Zhe's eyes were filled with kindness. When he saw Ning Fan talking to the plant, he thought that Ning Fan must have gone crazy again. It's good that your illness is acting up. Being crazy was the glorious tradition of the Yin and Yang sect. If he wasn't crazy, how could he be the successor of the Yin and Yang saint? If he didn't go crazy, he wouldn't be able to survive. He was very happy to see Ning Fan carrying forward this glorious tradition. He was very satisfied. Ning Fan was the successor of the Yin and Yang sect that he wanted to protect. His choice was not wrong. Even if he dies because of Ning Fan one day, it would be worth it. Chapter 1201. More and more netherworld ghost flowers grew on the desolate land of flesh and blood. Gradually, the area within thousands of miles became a world of thorns and vines. The roots of the ghost flowers of the netherworld pierced into the cracks of the rocks and greedily absorbed the underground water, that contained a tiny amount of the saint's blood. No one knew how thick the earth was. Although the power of the self-explosion of a sage-to-be was terrifying, it could only blow up a very thin layer of rock. The roots of the ghost flower of the underworld could only drink a small amount of underground water on the surface of the earth. The deeper underground water could not be touched. A speck of dust from a saint could fill the ocean. A blade of grass could cut through the sun and moon. And even a drop of blood from a saint could contain supreme power. The ghost flower of the underworld wasn't drinking blood. It was clearly consuming the world's most nutritious medicine. As she drank more and more blood, her vines began to release a faint clear chi. If one looked closely, they would find that the clear chi could be divided into 3 different shades of clear chi. The 3 pure chis gathered and dispersed at times, which was indescribably mysterious. Since the Luai's patriarch could not see the 3 pure ones gathering and dispersing, he was naturally not interested in the clear chi and started to focus on healing himself. Ning Fan was very interested in this 3 pure gathering powder. What is the clear chi that appeared on your body? Ning Fan asked the ghost flower of the netherworld. Wrong. This is not anger but anger. Chi and chi have the same sound. Therefore, this sentence sounded a little difficult to understand. It's not anger but anger? I don't understand. Acquired is chi, innate is chi, breathing is chi, existence is chi. Chi is the starting point of all living things. Chi is the end of all living things. Chi is. Only now did he realize that the netherworld ghost flower was talking about the difference between chi and chi. Many cultivation manuals had the word chi in them, and there were even many manuals that mixed the two together. He didn't know what chi was. He had never seen anyone cultivate it during the Age of Chaos. Even though the underworld ghost flower had explained a lot about it, he still didn't know what chi was. It was as if he didn't know what it was. There were always some things that could not be described with words. No matter how many words were used to describe it, it would not be able to get close to its essence. One could only comprehend it with one's heart. Forget it. What chi is not important at all. Can the method you just mentioned really allow me to drink the saint's blood directly? Not a large amount, but a small amount is fine. I'm already very satisfied to be able to eat a small amount of saint's blood raw. I didn't expect the ancient demon clan to have such a secret technique that requires the blood of a 3rd stepmaster to cultivate. During their previous conversation, the ghost flower of the netherworld had told him some secrets of the ancient devil race. In truth, it was not a secret. In the true world, everyone knew about it. In the era when the summit of demon sealing still existed in the illusory world, it was not a secret either. However, the ancient devil clan in the illusory dream world had already declined. This matter had already become history. That was why Ning Fan did not know about it. The ancient devils cultivated the blood, the ancient demons cultivated the spirit, and the ancient gods cultivated the heart. Different paths of cultivation naturally led to different innate talents. The ancient devil's talent lay in blood. If one's blood was cultivated to the limit, it would undergo a qualitative change, forming the ancient devil's special killing technique, ancestral atavism. The corresponding realm of ancient devils and eternal cultivators was called the ancestral atavism realm. However, to Ning Fan, who cultivated multiple bloodlines at the same time, there was no difference whether it was called ancestral atavism or eternal immemorial realm. Thus he did not really care about it. Ning Fan had always thought that ancestral atavism was just a name. It would not matter even if it was called incorrectly. Thus he did not really care about it. However, that was not the case. In the era when the Devil Conferral Summit still existed, any ancient devil at the peak of the Devil Conferral Summit was qualified to cultivate the ancestral atavism technique, as long as they cultivated to the ancestral atavism realm. Unfortunately, there was not even 1 in 10,000 who could truly cultivate the ancestral atavism technique. The reason why the 9 devil ancestors who were suppressed in the ancient devil's abyss were so famous was not because of their high cultivation base. Instead, it was because they had activated the ancestral atavism technique by chance. Thus, they were the superior beings in the ancient devil clan. The cultivation of the ancestral atavism technique was as difficult as ascending to the heavens. Just to obtain the qualification to cultivate this technique, one would need to consume the blood of a saint. The blood of a saint was extremely precious. Among the ancient devils at the eternal immemorial realm, there were only a few who could obtain the blood of a third-step saint. Those who obtained it by chance and could consume the blood of a saint without dying were even fewer. Moreover, the blood of a saint was just a threshold to cultivate this technique. In order to cultivate this technique to the highest level, the conditions were even harsher. Other than Great Emperor Mo, there was no one else on the peak of the Devil Conferral Summit who had cultivated the technique to the highest level of ancestral atavism. Even Great Emperor Ancient Chaos did not cultivate it to the highest level of ancestral atavism, because what he learned was too miscellaneous. Ning Fan naturally had no idea about all of these. He only became interested in this technique after hearing about the various powerful aspects of the ancestral atavism technique from the ghost flower of the netherworld. The cultivation of the ancestral atavism technique was divided into 3 stages: blood-drawing regeneration, blood-sprinkling rampage, and blood sacrifice to return to ancestral atavism. As the name suggested, blood-drawing regeneration was to absorb the blood chi of the enemy to recover one's own injuries and magic power. The principle of this technique was very similar to the ancient devil-killing technique. Of course, the ancient devil-killing technique also had other magical uses. Ningfan suspected that Great Emperor Mo had created the ancient devil-killing technique based on the principle of the first stage of the ancestral atavism technique, and established his position as the master of the Devil Conferral Summit. Blood-sprinkling rampage was a powerful technique. It was a secret technique that could increase one's strength within a short period of time. By sacrificing one's own blood, one could forcefully increase one's strength. The higher the grade of an ancient devil's bloodline, the more obvious the increase of the rampage technique would be. The principle of this technique to increase one's strength was very similar to the ancient devil-killing technique. The difference was that the ancient devil-killing technique required one to sacrifice the enemy's life to increase one's strength, while the rampage technique required one to sacrifice one's own blood. The third stage of the ancestral atavism technique was the scariest. Actually, the ghost flower of the netherworld was not particularly clear about what the third stage looked like. After all, she was not an ancient devil. The ghost flower of the netherworld had only told Ningfan a story. In the true world, there was once an ancient devil at the vein-opening realm. He encountered an accident and directly atavism. In that state, his consciousness was completely separated from time and space. He massacred a few middle-grade immortal kingdoms and killed more than 10 saints. The vein-opening realm ancient devil destroyed a kingdom and killed the saints. This story sounded just like a fantasy. However, if it is true, the ancestral atavism technique would be too terrifying. What kind of experience would the third stage of the ancestral atavism technique be? Of course, the price of atavism was also very heavy. As that vein-opening realm junior used the ancestral atavism technique too much, all of his parallel samsara realms collapsed, and his existence was completely erased by the samsara. Even someone as strong as a fourth-step immortal sovereign could not bring that young man back from the endless samsara. I'm going too far. With the nourishment of the saint's blood, the ghost flower of the netherworld's injuries were fully healed in less than the time it takes for an incense stick to burn. As the ghost flower of the netherworld recovered, the undying ghost soldiers that Ningfan created also recovered to their original state. The next step was the most important part. The ghost flower of the netherworld claimed that it could provide Ningfan with a certain degree of help by helping him consume the saint's blood to activate the first stage of the ancient devil atavism technique. The first stage was blood absorption. If he could obtain this ancient devil technique, the injuries on Ningfan's body would not be a problem at all. He would be able to recover after absorbing some saint's blood. The ghost flower of the netherworld did not expect that it could help Ningfan cultivate the second stage of the ancestral atavism technique. Was the ancestral atavism technique that easy to cultivate? The cultivation of this technique required the saint's blood to activate it. Moreover, it also required a profound understanding of the ancestral atavism technique. Even those infamous ancient devil saints in the true world needed a long period of time to comprehend the essence of the ancestral atavism technique when they first started cultivating this technique. If one's understanding of the first stage was insufficient, they would not be able to enter the second stage at all. Next, I will directly absorb the saint's blood from underground. You just need to bite my root and drink my root fluid to obtain the diluted components of the saint's blood. My root fluid can harmonize the enormous energy of the saint's blood, making it easier to absorb. However, not everyone can consume my root fluid. Only those who have signed a contract with me can do so. As for the others, they will be cursed by the nether curse. Nether curse? Ningfan nodded. He did not ask what the nether curse was. He only needed to know one thing. Only a contractor like him could obtain the help of the ghost flower of the netherworld and consume the saint's blood using this method. The ghost flower of the netherworld pulled out a root that was as thick as a bowl from the rock stratum and brought it to Ningfan, letting him bite it. Ningfan received the root and observed it for a long time. After making sure that it would not harm him, he finally opened his mouth and bit it. However, just as his teeth were about to touch the root, he hesitated again. The ghost flower of the netherworld is a woman, right? This root is equivalent to her body and the root fluid is similar to her blood, right? It seems a little cruel for him to bite the other party's body and drink her blood. Ningfan, of course, would not mind this little bit of cruelty to his enemies. However, the ghost flower of the netherworld was his companion in countless life and death battles. You're hesitating. You suspect that I will use this method to harm you, right? Don't worry. Something like a contract has a powerful restriction that you can't imagine. Since I've made a contract with you, I can't do anything to harm you unless our contract ends. Besides, I'm in a cage and you're my only hope of survival. I have no reason to harm you. Because of Ningfan's sudden hesitation, the ghost flower of the netherworld seemed to have misunderstood it. Ningfan smiled bitterly but did not explain further. How should he explain it? Should he say that he had tender feelings for a bunch of vines and roots? As for doubts, ever since he heard the words of the all-knowing old man, Ningfan finally realized that everything in this world was actually full of doubts and falsehoods. You can doubt everything and even doubt your own existence. But at the end of the day, you need to believe in everything. He chose to believe in the ghost flower of the netherworld. He believed that the companions whom he had gone through life and death together were not falsehoods. If he was still deceived in the end, then he could only accept it. Isn't this the truth of the world? In the end, he still made up his mind and bit it. Seeing that Ningfan chose to believe in it, the ghost flower of the netherworld seemed to be very happy. No one liked to be doubted by their companions. Its vines and leaves swayed happily. It was unknown if it was because of the wind. The root fluid was very bitter. It was as bitter as the tears of a woman missing her lover. In this kind of bitterness, there was a hint of undetectable sweetness. It was the taste of blood. It was the saint's blood that was further diluted in the root fluid of the ghost flower. Hot. So hot. The saint's blood that was even thinner than a tiny amount actually had an unimaginable heat. It was as if just a tiny trace of blood was enough to burn Ningfan's entire existence into ashes. It was even hotter than the extreme yang. It was even hotter than any flames at the second step in this world. That was the temperature of the blood boiling. If one were to observe it to a microscopic level, they would notice that every single blood cell in the saint's blood was engraved with ancient scriptures. Engraving scriptures on the blood. This was a technique that only a true saint would have. As long as one hasn't attained the third step, no matter how heaven-defying one is, one would not be able to achieve this. Ningfan sat on the ground with his legs crossed. He held the root and drank the blood. His face was filled with pain. His face became redder and redder. His body bulged like a ball. The pain was unbearable. No. With his current cultivation base, it was impossible for him to forcefully refine the saint's blood. Even with the help of the ghost flower of the netherworld, he only consumed a tiny amount of the blood, which was almost undetectable. However, this trace of blood represented the insurmountable gap between the second step and the third step. It represented the dignity of the third step. No matter what, it could not be violated by the second step. If you dare to drink my blood, I will take your life. This is the dignity of a saint. In a daze, Ning Fan seemed to see a female ant which was as large as a boundless world through that trace of the saint's blood. It was glaring at him furiously. What Ning Fan drank was the blood of the Lord Ant. The illusion he saw was the Tao and sense that the Lord Ant had left in the depths of the blood. Under the influence of the Lord Ant's Tao sense, Ning Fan shockingly discovered that his own Tao sense was showing signs of collapsing due to the absorption of the saint's blood. As expected, his current cultivation base was still not enough to consume the saint's blood raw. Even if he had a heaven-defying divine spirit body, it was still not enough. If he could not do it, how many people at the second step could do it since the ancient times until now? Unfortunately, the ancient devil clan was an unusual one. This bloodthirsty clan's research on blood was far beyond that of ordinary people. Just as Ning Fan could no longer endure the corrosion of the saint's blood in his body, the ancient devil bloodline in his body began to retaliate. The runes of the devil talisman began to appear on his entire body. Strange patterns covered his entire body, making him look evil. The devil nature that he had been suppressing was like a volcano erupting at this moment. His eyes gradually turned scarlet, as if he was going to devour someone. The devil blood in his body began to boil like lava erupting from a volcano. Devour, devour, devour. His devil blood began to forcefully devour a small amount of the saint's blood. No matter how noble you are, as long as you are an enemy, I will tear off your skin, bite your bones and swallow your blood. This was madness. It was madness. It was Mosu. When his blood boiled to an extremely hot state, it suddenly turned extremely cold. It was as cold as hell under the 8 coldest temperatures. At this moment, an extreme change occurred in the boiling of his devil blood. At this moment, Ning Fan's body temperature began to drop. His swollen body began to return to its original size. However, his consciousness became even more blurry. The madness in his mind increased by countless times. I want to tear this heaven apart. I want to trample this earth. I want to sweep away all my enemies. I want to sacrifice my remaining blood to shatter the turbid world and spread my devil sense. Roar. Ning Fan let out a devil roar that soared into the sky. A large amount of blood vapor emerged from his body. With just a trace of the saint's blood, he had actually broken the shackles of the devil sense in his body and stepped into the blood-drawing realm, which was the first stage of ancestral awakening. Blood. He wanted more blood. Ning Fan's consciousness became more and more blurry. He grabbed the root of the ghost flower in a violent manner and bit it hard. Large mouthfuls of root fluid flowed into his stomach. Sweet. It's really sweet. This is the taste of blood. A cruel and bloodthirsty smile hung on Ning Fan's face. As he forcefully absorbed the saint's blood, the severe injuries on his body recovered at a speed visible to the naked eye. 30 breaths. In just 30 breaths, all of Ning Fan's injuries were completely healed. Such a shocking recovery speed could be said to be heaven-defying. Even if all of Ning Fan's recovery methods were added together, it would still be far inferior to the speed of his current recovery. Hiss. What did this kid do? How did he become like this? Why is his chi so cold that it makes my heart palpitate? And how did his injuries recover so quickly? If ordinary quasi-saints were to suffer such injuries, they would definitely not be able to recover in less than 10 years. Moreover, this is because he did not damage his foundation. For people like me whose foundation is severely injured, I will need a long period of time to recover. This kid's recovery speed is just too terrifying. Old ancestor Lei Zhe was shocked beyond words. It was difficult for him to calm down and heal his injuries on his own. His attention was completely attracted by the commotion caused by Ning Fan. What's wrong with Brother Ning? His chi has become so cold. Afro accidentally met Ning Fan's merciless eyes, and she actually shivered. Master, he seems to be undergoing some kind of cultivation. Black Devil could tell a little about it. However, her memory was too incomplete. She could not remember what had happened to Ning Fan's current posture. Don't worry, all of you. Brother Hero has obtained a great fortune and has officially completed the first stage of the ancient devil ancestral awakening technique. It's really amazing. In the true world, There are very few ancient devils who can successfully cultivate this technique. Is this the blood-drawing regeneration technique? What a terrifying recovery ability. Ning Fan's severe injuries were healed in less than 30 breaths. I heard that the ancient devil saints of the true world need a long period of time to comprehend this technique, even if they possess the blood of a saint. Brother Hero must have spent countless years to comprehend this technique. After the battle with that female thief, Hong Lian, he finally had an epiphany and broke through the bottleneck. The sludge monster explained. What she did not know, however, was that Ning Fan did not spend a long period of time to comprehend the ancestral awakening technique. As soon as Ning Fan heard about the existence of the ancestral awakening technique, he succeeded in cultivating it in one go. It was luck, but it was also not. It was luck because there was coincidentally the blood of a saint in this place, and the ghost flower of the netherworld helped him to dilute the blood, reducing the difficulty of him consuming the blood. It was not luck because the principle of the first stage of the ancestral awakening technique was too similar to the killing technique. Ning Fan had already comprehended the killing technique to an extremely high level. To him, the first stage of the ancestral awakening technique was not difficult at all. The principle of the ancestral awakening technique that was hard for others to understand was too easy for a cultivator of the killing technique like him. Is this the power of the first stage of the ancestral awakening technique, the blood drawing technique? This technique gives me a feeling that as long as I kill and drink the blood of others, I will be omnipotent. The only flaw is that the devil intent produced by this technique is too violent. If it isn't for my firm Tao heart, I'm afraid my mind would be directly devoured by the devil intent once I activate the blood drawing technique, turning me into a human-shaped killing machine. So, this was the true appearance of an ancient devil. It was not enough to just comprehend the ancient devil Tao of destruction. A true ancient devil could only become strong after being bathed in blood. The principle of the first stage of the ancestral awakening technique isn't difficult to understand. As for the second stage, it is still a little difficult. After all, even though the second stage has some principles similar to the killing technique, there are still some differences. I wonder if I can use the blood of a saint in this place to attain the second stage of the ancestral awakening technique. Ning Fan began to try. As a result, his body began to undergo a shocking transformation. He did not activate his eternal true body on his own, but his true body was activated on its own. Then, the form of his eternal true body actually underwent a huge change on its original foundation. Ning Fan practiced the devil Tao. His forte was the element of wood. After all, he had already awakened his divine spark and became the Father God. He was more powerful than the sovereign realm, and more powerful than the titled realm. As a result, the change of his true body was actually following the direction of the wooden man. The form of his eternal true body was no longer a simple golden-armored giant. Instead, it was evolving into the form of a golden-armored tree devil. Ning Fan was a little confused. He was clearly cultivating the second stage of the ancestral awakening technique, but his eternal true body suddenly underwent a change at an untimely time. The appearance of this change was actually a little similar to the second stage of the ancient true body. What's going on? I clearly want to use the power of the second stage of the ancestral awakening technique to go berserk. Why does it seem like I'm cultivating the second stage of the ancient true body instead? Is it the case for every ancient devil, or is it only an ancient divine being like me? Ancestral awakening. All of a sudden, a thought flashed across Ning Fan's mind. He seemed to have understood something. What kind of ancestor is the ancient devil returning to? In this world, there were divine spirits first, followed by immortal spirits. Among the descendants of immortal spirits, there were also clans like ancient devils. Could it be that it wasn't the ancestors of ancient devils who returned to their ancestry, but the ancestors of all living beings, divine spirits? The ancestral atavism technique was used to turn a cultivator into a divine spirit. As for Jiang Yi himself, he was already a divine spirit. If the ancestral atavism technique was used on him, it was highly possible that the effect would be different from the other ancient devils. Ning Fan did not know that his guess was actually very close to the truth. A normal ancient demon's ancestral awakening was to assume the form of a divinity and use the power of a normal divinity to kill their enemies. However, Ning Fan was originally a divine spirit. His ancestor was not an ordinary divine spirit, but the ancestor of all divine spirits. The Treant devil that his true body had transformed into was no ordinary Treant devil, but the form of the wood ancestor god. Ning Fan was fortunate enough to become the father god of wood. It was because all the divine spirits of the wood element had died out in this era. Otherwise, he certainly would not have had the chance to become the father god of wood. The so-called father god of wood must be the strongest wood god of the same era. But that was only in the context of the same era. Only the strongest father god who stood above all the wood father gods of all eras could be called the ancestor god. If Ning Fan completely steps into the second stage of ancestral awakening, his eternal true body would probably evolve in the direction of the wood ancestor god and display a little of the power of an ancestor god. Unfortunately, he could not do it. The devil sense that was produced in the first stage of ancestral awakening had almost devoured his rationality. The devil sense produced in the second stage was tens of times stronger than the first stage. This level of devil sense was just too terrifying. His second stage of eternal true body had only formed a part of its outline, but his entire body was already on the verge of collapse. If he forcefully steps into the second stage of true body, he would completely lose his rationality and be devoured by the devil sense. When he enters the state of chi deviation, he would only know how to kill. Old ancestor Leisha, Little Mao, and the other women in front of him would become his indiscriminate killing targets. Thus, Ning Fan did not continue to try to enter the second stage of ancestral awakening. It was not because he could not do it, but because he did not dare to act recklessly. He was afraid that he would hurt the people close to him. He calmed the devil sense in his body and exited the incomplete second stage of ancestral awakening. Then, he exited the first stage of ancestral awakening. All the blood vapor on his body had disappeared. Seeing that Ning Fan was safe and sound after causing such a huge commotion, Leisha and the others felt relieved. Only the sludge monster had its mouth wide open. Because it was too shocked, it could not close it no matter how hard it tried. The second stage of ancestral awakening. Brother Ing has definitely stepped into the second stage of ancestral awakening. He had clearly just completed the first stage, but he actually stepped into the second stage in just a blink of an eye. How is this possible? Among all the ancient devil saints in the true world, there isn't a single one who could do such a heaven-defying thing. Could it be that Brother Ying's innate potential is actually above all the ancient devils in the true world? The sludge monster admired Ning Fan even more now. Her brother Ing actually had the chance to become the strongest ancient devil in history. Who would dare to bully her if she stays by his side? Brother Ning, what exactly are you? Old ancestor Leisha was full of doubts. He wanted to ask Ning Fan what he was doing just now, but then thought that it might be Ning Fan's secret. Thus, he found it inappropriate to ask. I'm sorry. Ning Fan apologized. He was apologizing because he could not tell him the truth. The identity of a divine being was too taboo. If it is leaked out, he did not know what kind of chaos it would cause. Thus, it was for his own good that he did not tell old ancestor Leisha about it. Why are you apologizing? Which person doesn't have some secrets? When I was 9 years old, I smelled my senior sister's underwear, and I didn't tell anyone about it. Old ancestor Leisha covered his mouth awkwardly. This fellow just spilled the beans. When he was young, he seemed to have done some outrageous things. Luckily, his senior sister did not know about it. Otherwise, she would probably beat him to death. When senior was young, you were really mischievous. When Ning Fan suddenly heard such inappropriate words, he also felt a little awkward. He almost did not know how to reply. It's just a joke. It's just a joke. Old ancestor Leisha smiled awkwardly. Ning Fan did not believe that it was a joke. However, he did not mention it again to prevent old ancestor Leisha from feeling awkward. After curing the ghost flower of the netherworld, and successfully cultivating the first stage of the ancestral awakening technique, Ning Fan was in a pretty good mood. Even if Hong Lian's true body comes here, He was also confident that he could fight her without using his bewitching technique. Unfortunately, it seemed like it would still take a long time for Hong Lian's true body to arrive. Thus, in the remaining time, Ning Fan began to produce the corpse slave king and ghost soldier. If he could create this corpse slave king and ghost soldier before Hong Lian arrives, it would certainly give her a big surprise. What made Ning Fan happy was that the success rate of the ghost soldier was actually close to 100%, while the ghost flower was absorbing the blood of the saints in the underground world. Its production speed was also shockingly fast. Not long after that, the corpse slave king and ghost soldier were created. Now, Ning Fan had another great general under his command. If Hong Lian's true body comes here without a plan, he would certainly be in big trouble. However, there was one thing that Ning Fan was not quite satisfied with. The undying corpse slave king that he created seemed to be a little disobedient. What's going on? Aren't undying ghost soldiers supposed to obey their master's orders without question? Why is this corpse slave king so resistant to my orders? Ning Fan frowned. This ghost soldier is too strong. Your cultivation base is not high enough to control it perfectly. If you want to control it perfectly, there is only one way. The ghost flower of the netherworld answered. What is it? Beat it into submission. This? Ning Fan felt a headache coming on. The corpse slave king was a monster with blood and chi. Before it became a ghost soldier, it was already not something that the Life Slayer sword could deal with easily. Now that it had become an undying ghost soldier, its undying ability became even more heaven-defying. It would be extremely difficult to restrain it with the Life Slayer sword. Hong Lian's true body was already not far away. Ning Fan did not think that he could subdue the corpse slave king in such a short time. After all, the corpse slave king was not as weak as Myriad Saint Dragon King. Forget it. I'll deal with the corpse slave king's obedience when I have the time later. Right now, even though it is somewhat resistant to my orders, it doesn't mean that it will absolutely disobey me. If I order it to attack Hong Lian, it will still participate in the battle even if it doesn't put in its full effort. Ning Fan said helplessly. He was getting closer. He was getting closer. There was no geomagnetic interference here. Ning Fan's rain technique could sense places far away without any hindrance. He could sense that Hong Lian's true body was already very close to him. This time, Hong Lian did not come in the form of her lotus seed clone. Her strength would certainly be much stronger than the previous battle, and she would be more vigilant against the bewitching technique. However, Ning Fan was no longer injured like before. This time, he could exert 100% of his strength, and he could even use his ghost soldiers. Moreover, among the ghost soldiers, there was an additional corpse slave king who was not very obedient. The undying corpse slave king, the undying soul-sucking tree, the undying Myriad Saint Dragon King, the undying Black Qilin. In addition to Ning Fan, who was in his peak condition, if he still could not get rid of Hong Lian with such a powerful lineup, he would really be ashamed to face others. They were getting closer and closer. Hong Lian could sense that Ning Fan and the others were right in front of them. They were right at the place where the battle took place just now. This young man is really arrogant. She did not believe that Ning Fan did not know that her true body was coming. This young man clearly knew that her true body was coming, but he actually did not run away. Instead, he stayed at the same place and waited for her to come. Did he not put her in his eyes at all? Do you think you can use your bewitching technique to trick me again? Dogman, you will regret it. Hong Lian's delicate voice reverberated across heaven and earth. At the moment when her voice resounded, she finally appeared in the line of sight of Ning Fan and the others. Do you know how many years it will take for me to recover the lotus seed clone that I lost? You deserve to die. You deserve to die. Ning Fan. Ning Fan. Ning Fan. I have said that I will get back at you. Since you are a disciple of the chaotic Koan race, you are probably daydreaming about the pure land of bliss, aren't you? Just as well. I will send you to the pure land of bliss with the 8 treasures red lotus karmic fire of your chaotic Koan race. Hong Lian was so angry that she laughed. She opened her mouth and breathed out raging flames. What she breathed out was not fire. It was karmic fire. You're tuning in to the Li Mei's Wuxia Whispers YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.